Good evening, and today is Thursday, November 2nd, 2023, and welcome to the regular session of the Milford School Committee meeting. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Milford TV, and copies can be obtained at the request of this board or through central office. Great to see everybody tonight. Our first agenda item will be the Bert Nazi Outstanding Teacher of the Year recipients. So I'll welcome our guests to come on up.
You've rearranged
Front right
since I
here,
was
a little bit.
last.
Actually, Craig, we will have you turn that screen off. I realized after. My apologies.
You want to move the microphone on the table?
Yes, please. Andrew, could you give? I was thinking the student report was first, but
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for being here, and introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
Okay. Well, it's been a couple of years. We've been giving this award now since 1998. And for the last 2 years, because we couldn't all meet together, we suspended it. My board voted to make a donation to the hospital each year in place of what we were doing with this award. But we're back now that everybody is getting healthy again. And I should probably begin by, although we're back, I've got an announcement to make that I won't be doing this in the future. Reaching 90 has told me that it's kind of time to maybe step aside and allow my youthful image, my son David, Bert Nazi, will be making the award in the future. I'll still be involved, but not out front, which I'm sure will be to your relief. You know, Milford is such an interesting town. For those of us who've lived here all our lives, had the opportunity to go out into the world afterwards and come back here. What we're seeing is a replay of the old days in many ways. The generation before mine that came over here was very concerned because many of them came from other countries, didn't have an education, but prized education, realized how important it was, and wanted nothing more than a really good education for their kids. Well, we're in similar times. As you know, your schools now are largely inhabited by a number of people who weren't born here, and to them, to their future, the most important thing is to whether they're going to be able to lead a productive life is the kind of education that they're going to get here in Milford. That's why this is so important. The teachers are the educators, and the teachers constitute the education. It's up to the type and quality and caliber of teachers as to how far the students will be able to go. The reason we started this in Milford in my time was that I was always appreciative of the fact that we had a really outstanding group of teachers always, and they gave us the opportunity to go to schools that we might not have been able to go to otherwise and compete. And many who received their education in Milford were the better for it. Because of the education provided here in Milford, we have a Nobel Prize winner. We have a number of physicians, a number of lawyers. We have people who have excelled in the business world. We've had a Massachusetts Speaker of the House and a Massachusetts Senate Majority Leader, I might add, and so many others who may not have had a title, but who probably achieved more success than all of us combined. And it's because of the type of teachers that we've had here in Milford and the opportunity that the school committees over the years and the taxpayers in Milford have given them to be able to provide a really strong education. I don't have to tell you that. Each of you chose to put your name up for election because you believed in the education system here in Milford, and you wanted to make sure that it retained the quality that it's had for all these years. So I have to congratulate you on the fact that you've maintained the quality of teachers over these years. We've been doing this, as I said, since 1998. There were just the 2 years that we didn't do it, so that means that 24 people, along with 6 each year, who have won nominations. The system, the way it works, our board doesn't participate in the selection process. We choose people within the community, and they gather. The way in which any person, any teacher in the system can be nominated is by anyone in the community. It's a community-wide process. And so once those people are recommended, the various school councils, each school council chooses its own nominee. That means that each one of those 6 school councils has chosen a nominee, and that nominee has won the nomination. So it's not just one winner, it's all of them being winners. And so I'd like to begin by naming the nominees, each of whom received a plaque at the gathering of all of the school personnel. Allison Tomaso, a Shining Star Early Childhood Center teacher, was a nominee. Meredith Borst from Brookside Elementary School. Shaylin Walker from Memorial Elementary School. Dan Cody from Stacy Middle School. Those people all won the nomination by their various school councils. And then we had, for the very first time in all these years since 1998, we met in this room with the selection committee. They voted and voted and voted and tied each time. And the end result was Dr. DiGregorio, the chairman of the committee, and I stepped out in the hallway and decided that they weren't going to back down, that the tie was going to go all night long. And so we decided for the very first time since we started giving this award that we would give 2 awards to the 2 people who tied. And these 2 people are here tonight, and I'd like you to meet, first of all, Christine Dwyer from the Woodland Elementary School. And Melissa Manning from Milford High School. Now, each of these people won the plaque that they have, and they also won $1,000 each. And I'm going to ask each of them to say something to you now. Chris?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this is such an honor. I was kind of at a loss for words the day that I found out. And I don't know that I said thank you to everyone that I should have, but I have been here for 20 years, and I've had the pleasure at working at Brookside and Woodland, and I feel as though I wouldn't be here today without the support that I've had over the years from administration and the teachers that I work with. So I'm very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for their support, especially Josh, over the years, especially this past years. But really, I'm dedicating this to all my students, especially two here, and a couple of parents in the audience. But I wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for them. They motivate me. They keep me going. They make every day exciting here at the high school. So this is really for them. So thank you very much.
I should point out that Melissa also, when she was a student here at Milford High, won the trip that we sent a student to Italy on every year. And after studying there, she came back here, and in addition to the fact that she's a science teacher, aren't you?
Yes.
Also taught Italian here in Milford High School. And so that completes my bit. Next year, please be kind to my son.
Well, again, thank you very much for coming in tonight. We really appreciate your time. Obviously, we missed you over these last couple of years, but it is great to have you back and to honor all the nominees and particularly the winners. I guess before you can run away, because it has been 2 years and there might be some new faces on the board that may want to ask you a question or two or give a comment,
sure.
if that's all right.
Sure.
I'll open up to the board to see if they have anything they'd like to bring up. Yes, Michael.
Some of you know, like Maggie and whatnot, my father died very young, and Senator Bernazzi is actually one of the only few people who actually knew him. So whenever I see him, he always gives these little snippets and nuggets of my father when he was alive. So it's always a pleasure to see you, and thank you for all your years of service.
Well, I'm not sure that it feels great to know that I was your father's classmate, but but the interesting thing is your father and I were friends in high school, and my daughter and you are friends now. So Milford's a great town.
Any other comments? John, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
don't know if anybody else wants to go first, but I just want to say, Senator, thank you so much for this. And this award is really very prestigious. And I had the pleasure of sitting on the selection committee one year. I'm not sure if you remember that. That was about 10 years ago, give or take. And it was amazing to see all the work that these great teachers are doing here. And as you said, everybody that's recognized is highly accomplished. And it was really, really difficult at the time to select one over anybody else. And I love that we have two today because it is such a difficult choice. And I just want to thank you for all of your dedication towards this effort. And we certainly welcome your successor, David. Looking forward to seeing you here next year at this time. But thank you for everything, and thank you to not just all the teachers that were recommended for this award, but really to every teacher in this district, because that's why we're
And that's
here.
another thing, to show that this is a community-wide thing. For the 24 years, we have, my board members have selected 7 people from the community every year. That's an example of someone who served 10 years ago. We never have anyone served more than once. So that means that, almost 150 people in the community have actually served on the selection committee and have gotten that much closer to the Milford program and the quality of the teachers.
Thanks, Chris. Christine, I was shocked when you said 20 years of tenure. I think it's incredible to think about how long you remarkable teachers have been in the district, but certainly, Mr. Bernazzi, we would be remiss to not acknowledge the tenure with which you've been doing this year after year, to recognize the outstanding teachers. We're so fortunate to have it, and we will certainly do our best to take care of young David. But thank you not only for the financial support, but all the support that you provided the community to offer these awards. My students haven't been fortunate enough to have you, Christine, but obviously, Robbie and Melissa has loved you, and recently asked, a teenage boy, what's your favorite class? And he's like, well, Mrs. Manning's my favorite teacher. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure you love science, but okay, got it. And so it was without hesitation. You don't always get that enthusiasm, so I can assure you you're making a difference. So thanks for keeping it up.
Greg, please.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Senator Bertnazzi. I think I've been here for every one of them. I think the first one was Arthur Caswell,
Arthur Caswell.
Wow.
Wow.
who's still in our district working as a
Wow.
assistant.
Oh, what is he?
Yeah, he's working as a behavior assistant, right? Yeah. So-
Wow.
I should point out, the very first choice we made proved to be the most controversial among the group, because I held, when I established the foundation board, as most of you probably know, my mentor, my everything, Paul Raftery, was to me one of the outstanding people in the world. And so when we established when I established the board and put him on the board, he at the time had just moved into, what is it up there? Crossroads? No, not Crossroads.
Countryside.
What is it? Countryside. And so I held all our meetings at Countryside. People wondered why we were always going to visit there, but we were actually holding meetings. Paul Raftery and Bob Pagnini, another former principal, were the two people on my board who actually put together all of the specifications for what the selection process would be. And the big hassle was, should it be a teacher or should it be an educator? And that went around and around. The people who felt it should be a teacher felt that it shouldn't include anyone else outside of the teachers. Those who felt it should be an educator felt that anybody who worked in the system should be eligible. The end result was Paul and Bob decided that for us, that it should be a selection process for teachers, because principals would be in kind of an awkward point. We needed the principals in order to help to make the selections. The principals all chair these school councils, I believe. And so that was a difficulty that we went around and around on. Finally, it was settled. It would be a teacher. And then Arthur Caswell was selected, and he was a guidance counselor. But he had been a teacher, and so it was resolved in a very political way.
I guess the last thing I want to say, and I don't know if it's been clear, but it's a very tight-lipped process, right? So everybody walking into on the first day, nobody really knows who's going to win. So it adds a little more excitement to an exciting first day, and for that I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
24 years. The selection committee meets in June in the superintendent's office. This year they met in here, and we ask them when they finish in June not to say anything to anyone because of the fact that we do keep it secret, and thus far it's worked. Melissa happens to be a very dear friend of my daughter Lisa's, but I wouldn't tell Lisa that Melissa had won.
Well, your committee got it right this year, because there's no two finer educators, so thank you.
Thank you all.
Again, yeah, thank you very much. Congratulations to our two teachers. You know, as Christine had my son, Ms. Manning, you have my daughter currently, so both would have my vote, certainly. So thank you thank you very much for being a part of this tonight, and we applaud you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is our student representative update. Take it away.
So we have some like good things going on at the school, and then we have some things that our like peers and classmates have been saying that they're a little concerned about. So girls field hockey made it to the playoffs. They had their first game today. It's like the first time they made playoffs, I think, since 1990 something. So it's pretty impressive.
So yeah, also Science Olympiad had an amazing competition yesterday, and there were many first place finishes. Also coming up for cross country, D1 state championships is on November 11th.
Milford football is in the playoffs. Their first game is tomorrow. It's home, so it's very exciting for them. And then winter sports are starting, preseason captains practices, all that is gonna start around like next week, end of next week.
Also coming up is the Joe B Band concert at November 18th at Southwick Zoo. I actually play the piano in the Joe B Band, so you guys can feel free to come. So yeah.
So some things that we've been talking about like with our classmates and or people at lunch or whatever is the heating. That's something that a lot of people are like concerned about, and I also think I can speak on behalf of my parents. They're definitely like a little stressed. Like my mom gives me like a bunch of layers before I put this on before you go to school. A lot of kids are saying like it's kind of like distracting because if you're trying to learn and you're like shivering like in your freezing cold, then it's hard to like pay attention to like your science or math or whatever you're learning. And for me, my fingers get like too cold to type. But I think that's like the biggest thing on like everyone's minds right now.
Also, the students have been complaining about rodents in the school. There's I saw a mouse not too long ago, and people have seen them in classrooms, in the hallways, and it's been kind of ruining the school environments a little bit.
And then the CAF, it's more of like the table like hygiene, I think. I think it is like it's gotten better for sure. Like when students like clean up after themselves and like if they leave a mess, and some of them do clean it up. But then there's also some students that like kind of like neglect it and don't consider the fact that there's other people coming and that the lunch ladies are already so like overburdened that they can't do more than they already do for us. So I think that's definitely something that we need to like consider. But yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to open up to the committee for questions or comments. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I have a comment. I very much appreciate your participation here and the updates. When we get into topics of sort of complaints or concerns, we don't need to wait until 2 weeks till tonight. If you have these concerns, please forward them to the building principal or to any of us as Chris as the chair, or any of us as committee members, because these are things that we can't. We love the updates on the football team and the other updates you've given, but if there's concerns, get them to us beforehand, because then we can act on them. That's all.
Matt.
You talking about tables? No, I was going to say, so on the agenda tonight later on, we're talking about the boilers and the tables, so you guys should probably stay for that.
Cool.
We're also talking about the Joe B Band,
Yeah.
so there's a lot on the agenda, Andrew.
So I was just going to say, obviously, the tables are a concern of ours. We know about the heat. I don't think we have anything about pests and rodents on the agenda, but obviously we'll look into that too. What I would ask of you guys, if you could, is see if you can kind of rally a little bit of pushback on your peers for the ones who aren't cleaning up after themselves. Because we've talked about this at other schools. We've placed trash barrels around Stacy in the past, and especially here, a lot of students here are merging towards becoming adults, right? And we're all taught, and we as parents are teaching our kids to clean up after yourselves and take care of your property and take pride in the places you're in. So I'm hoping that maybe you guys can rally some of your friends to start pushing back on those guys too, because obviously, like you said, you have lunch and shifts, and you should be able to come into a clean lunch table. Mm-hmm. And the students before you should be able to handle that. It's not complicated to throw trash away. So it's unfortunate to hear that's also a problem, but I think in many ways, like you said, it's not just on the cafeteria staff. It's every student and every person in the building to keep this place as neat as we can get it. So hopefully you guys can kind of flip that switch a little bit and start putting some pressure on those that aren't doing it. But
For sure.
I'm sure there's other things we can do too, so we'll talk.
All right,
So-
cool.
Brendan.
Yeah, I appreciate the updates. I think your experience here should be better, and I apologize for that. I think we can do better for you. So we're working on the heat. We'll work on the rodents. We'll work on other things. But like everyone said, bring the attention to us sooner when you can, and we'll address it as fast as possible. But I'm sorry. Your experience should be better. This is your senior year, especially for you guys. So
yeah, we need to do better.
Thank you for that. Sounds like you have our support, right? So please keep bringing those issues. As Mr. Erickson had said, feel free to reach out to me, you know, and email me with those concerns, and I would be happy to, you know, be the bridge to administrations. I know Mr. Allen obviously is somebody that you can reach out to too. I mean, if you have the confidence to be here and tell us, then I know that his door is going to be open, and he's going to be another person that you can reach out to, and he can reach out to me as far as helping out in the process. So, but I appreciate the confidence of coming here and letting us know, and then as a representative for that student body, and again, you're hearing the support from our side that we want to provide you with the best experience possible. So, keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. He said we'll be getting to that stuff a little later. You'd have to endure the MCAS overview math program update, or you can run home and we're on TV, so you can watch us on TV too. All right.
Or hit the replay.
Or hit the replay. But you are free to go. But we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the updates.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Well, they're cleaning their stuff up. We'll move on to our approval of minutes. One set of minutes, which was the regular session meeting minutes from October 19th. One modification from my side will be page 5 of those minutes. Item C, the refrigerator is said to be $11,000. It's actually $1,000, so that correction there. Talked more with Melissa before. Any other discussion on those meeting minutes? Not seeing any, so looking for a motion to approve the October 19th minutes as I modified, and that's from Michael. Motion from Michael, second by Megan, then all in favor. And
I abstain
is-
from that.
Okay, so,
I'll abstain.
okay, so
Sorry.
4 in favor and 2 abstentions? All right.
You know what that was?
Thank you. Very good. Okay, then moving on to announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Anything in that department? Michael?
Yeah, so myself and Meg was there, and Craig was there. Last night we had a great session with the equity audit through the Bar Foundation. So we met with a diverse group of people from the community, administrators and teachers, and had some really good discussions on how we should do better at equity in the schools.
Excellent. Great. Thank you for that. Anything else? Seeing it? Great. Yep.
Artwork.
Excellent.
We have some artwork, the Mexican bark paintings from the grade 4 students at Woodland. Mrs. Duarte is their teacher.
Thank you for letting us know on that. They look great. Seeing anything else? So, all right. And moving on to invitation to speak. Not seeing anybody here for invitation to speak. So then we'll move on to our math MCAS overview and math programming update.
Thank you. Hold on one sec, please.
No problem.
444, what's it, 29? Okay. I'm good? No. Okay, so we brought Carrie here today to talk to you about math programming. We're going to do that second to our accountability and MCAS presentation. This is just math today. But we're also going to do the accountability piece of it too. I know that you all had a chance to look at the slides that we provided prior to, so we'll try to go through them, and if you have any questions, please just stop us, I guess. We felt like that the first thing that we should talk about is who the students in Milford are. This is actually last year's data. This data, it shows the number of students at each school. The third column is the percent of first language, not English. The fourth column is English language learners, and then students with disabilities. High needs is a combination of students with disabilities, English learners, and low-income students. So if a student checks one of those boxes, or all three boxes, they end up as a high-need student. And then that final column is low income. I'm sure you've seen this slide also a few times. I wanted to give you some context with all of these. These are all districts that abut Milford. So you have Milford, Mendon Upton, Medway, Hopkinton, Holliston, Hopedale, Bellingham, BVT. Just for a comparison for you. Unfortunately, our MCAS results or our accountability status sometimes gets compared with towns all around us, but what doesn't get compared is the actual demographic data of each of those districts. The one on the bottom is Blackstone Valley Tech, which again it's not really comparison at all. But then also interesting is Massachusetts is the second one. So those are the numbers statewide. All right. Actually, let me go back. I don't have the percentage. Whatever. I just wanted to say that we recently, I think as of today, crossed over our the 1,500 mark for EL students in our district. So we have 1,502 now. Last year, we were around 1,400, so picked up another 100 students or so. All right, so key takeaways from our accountability data, and we'll go through this so that hopefully it's easy to understand. It's not, I know that, but we'll try to make it easy. Our overall classification is not requiring assistance or intervention, which is good. As a district and also as Woodland, we made substantial progress towards our targets. I'll talk about that in a minute more specifically. At Milford High School and Stacy, we made moderate progress towards our targets, which is also good. It's the first year since 2019 that DESE determined targets. In many areas across the district, we exceeded those targets. And then finally, chronic absenteeism remains a concern, but as I'll show you, we're making progress. All right. So when we look at our targets, if you exceed the target, you get 4 points. If you meet the target, you get 3 points. If you're below the target, but you improved, you're getting 2. If you don't change, it's 1, and decline is 0. All right, and that's, here I'll show you specifically what that means. I think this is Woodland, right? Yeah, Woodland. So you see, if we went through all the schools, which we won't, I'll spare you that. You see here, you have your percent progress towards targets. Anything over 50% gets you this rating of substantial progress towards targets. If you make 75%, you're considered meeting your targets. All right, how they determine that is over here. This is the general breakdown overview. You can see at Stacy, for example, we'll talk chronic absenteeism. In this, oops, sorry, on the column here on the right, this is all students. I'm sorry, on the left, on the column here on the right, that's the lowest performing students. So they take the lowest 20%, and that's their own group, and they have a separate set of targets for them. The targets you can find, if you're into that sort of thing and you want to dig through data, if you look at the detailed data for each indicator, here's the target that's set by the state. This is in this column here is the 22 achievement, or in this case it's achievement data. This is 23, it tells you the change, and then it tells you, in this case, we didn't meet the target, we actually declined in this one, so we would get 0. All right, and then basically that's how they determined where we are. And you can go through the whole thing. We're not going to do that today. All right. let's move on. I wanted to talk chronic absenteeism specifically. I thought it was important to give you some context with where we were in 2019. So 2019 was pre-pandemic, all right? This is for all of our students, grades 3 through 8. Again, I pulled it right from that the district profiles that I just showed you. In 2019, we were 10.1%. If you notice, 2018 we were 8.7. So we actually declined from 18 to 19 for students in grades 3 to 8. We also, what this chart shows you is all of our subcategories, okay? Unfortunately, we were in a decline from 18 to 19. But then came COVID, and now this is where we're at. So try to remember these numbers. 2023, we dropped. We made really good progress. We went from 27.4% with all students in 22 to 20.7, but still not even close to where we were in 2019. Right? It was around 10%. So we're double. So that's something that, as a district, school leaders, teachers, we're all very concerned about. It's hard to make progress in something like MCAS when we're dealing with 20% of our population that's chronically absent. But again, we made good growth last year. Hopefully we make the same kind of growth this year. All right, so that's grades 3 to 8. High school, this is where we were in 2018 and 19, about 22% in 2019. And you can see all the subgroups, our lowest performing, our high needs, so on and so forth, all the way down. ELs in 2019 represented the group with the most chronic absenteeism at 42.7. Now, as a school, it's 37.6. EL is still at the top, but it's right. Students with disabilities are right there with them.
What year did we bring in the
Attendance officers?
Yeah.
22. No, last year was
Yeah,
our first year. Last year. Yeah.
They start 22 to 23 school year.
Yep. Okay, so that's chronic absenteeism. We're making strides. We just need kids to be here, and we're trying to figure it out. All right, so before I go into math, I wanted to talk about a little bit about MCAS. What we know about MCAS, hold on, I missed a slide. It's one point in time, right? It's important to remember that. The kids take the test over 2 days in math. They take it over 2 days in May for the most part. High school is a little different, but in May from grades 3 to 8. It is standards based, and the kids take it in ELA and math in grades 3 to 8, and then also grade 10, and then they take it in science in grades 5, 8, and 10. 9. But if we focus on just our MCAS, what it does is it narrows the curriculum. It forces us to think only about math and only about reading in ELA. It creates a place where we're going to just really teach the test, and if we just focus on MCAS alone. It devalues our teachers, and it misinforms the public about school quality. Sometimes when people look at MCAS, they think it means good school, bad school. Doesn't mean that at all. Just a quick review of MCAS over the years. 2019, that was pre-COVID. That was a full year of administration. 2020, there were no tests. 2021, For grades 3 to 8, it was a half test that was administered, and then in grade 10, the full test was administered, and then 22, we're back at it. So this represents the second year of full testing after COVID. And then our math aggregate results from 2019 to 23. This chart is a percentage of students meeting or exceeding where they need to be. Okay, so it's a 500 or better. The first three here, where it says state, that's just the average of the state. USN is the Urban Superintendent's Network, and then you have Milford. You can see over the it's 4 years really, right? Over the 4 years, you can see where we've changed. So we've gone down significantly since COVID. However, across the state, it's the same thing. Across the Urban Superintendent's Network, it's the same thing. What I think is important to highlight here is the change from 22 to 23. I think that what that's showing is that the dip or the slide is coming to a halt, and we're on our way back up. We have a slide here with grade level comparisons. The top slide represents Woodland. We couldn't disaggregate it that way for the Urban Superintendent's Network or the state, so we gave you a range. So at Woodland, the percent overall was 30, compared to our Urban Superintendent's Network, which was between 24 and 28. So we're a little ahead of that, and then under the state average. I think it's important to show that grade 5 represents I guess a little bit of a bright spot for us, and the high school definitely does too. There was only one class that was a little under our Urban Superintendent's Network. Otherwise, we were right with them or a little above. And then growth percentile. Now, I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind when you compare class to class to class, back like we did with this slide. Where was it? Oh, maybe it was this one. No, I don't have it. I'm sorry. I thought I did. When you talk about comparing one sixth grade to the next year's sixth grade, and you look at percentages that way, you're comparing two different sets of kids, right? So if you say, hey, in the sixth grade this year, we had 30%, and then the next year's, when you're looking at the sixth grade and it's 32%, it's two different sets of kids, all right? When you're looking at growth is a little different, because growth is considering the same group of kids, all right? So when it takes all of the kids and where they scored, and looks at how all the other kids scored across the state, and it comes up with a growth percentile that way. So really, that's the growth percentile is about cohorts of kids. All right. So where you want to land is somewhere like typical growth or moderate growth is somewhere between 40 and 59. Over 60 or over is high growth, and then under 40 is considered low growth. So in 23, this is where we landed for the schools, and then you can see by grade level where we landed. And then subgroups. Again, this is percentage of meeting or exceeding. This is 19, this is 22, 19, this is 23, sorry. And then here's your state comparison of 23, and then the change. Again, I think this column over here, the change from 22 to 23, is the important one for me. It's to me, demonstrating that we're on the way up. And then here's our grade 10. Grade 10 made significant strides in all of these subgroups, which is great to see. I think also important to note that in 23, in some of these subgroups, well, in all of them, right? Except for the last category here, they're actually higher than they were in 2019. All right, so I don't know if anybody has questions about that. If you have questions about what we're doing about it, that's where Carrie's going to step in right now. So Carrie's presentation is about the programming that we're up to right now, to deal with these numbers and just basic instruction every day.
Thank you. I guess, yeah, any quick questions on the data that's in front of us first before we move on?
I don't know that whether this is a question or a comment, because, you know, we parse out that these are different cohorts, different years. Parse out that it's one snapshot of one day at a time, or one performance on one individual day. We see the data, and it's related to different student groups, and this is not meant with any disrespect to you or to the institution that's here, but the data, we can parse out statistics and data all day long and come up with all kinds of analysis. I'm much more interested in the next part of this presentation on what we're doing to, you know, going forward with curriculum and efforts. So I don't know if that's a question or a comment, but it's what's on my mind.
Any, Michael?
Yeah, so thank you for the overview. I think in the future what I'd like is a slide where you give your commentary, just like bullet points of what you see. Because you just said a lot. I probably remember less than 5% of it. So if you just did a slide of your, you know, the things that you look at as the lead educator in our district, the bullet points, that'd be super helpful for me.
Sure. We try to stay low on that ladder.
I think we're all kind of thinking in the same line. And one note that I took, this is great, and what we see for grade 10, that's obviously very promising, and they've worked really hard to whatever you guys have been doing to get a lot of these positive numbers. That's fantastic progress, and it seems like that trajectory is going right where you said it's going in the right direction. But like you said, it's the one snapshot. We have iReady and all these other pieces. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. How do we take all of these single snapshots and put some tool out there that's going to tell us how we're actually doing as a district beyond, like you said, some people look at MCAS and we'll get cornered on the street about MCAS scores, and then somebody else will talk about their kids' iReady score and how, you know, that looks great, but this one doesn't look great. And how do we balance that so we actually have a full picture of what's going on throughout?
It's a good question, because I think most important is what the teacher sees every day in the class.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? And I think our report cards don't always reflect that either.
I would agree.
So the most important information I think that I could, if I'm a parent, the most important information I could get is by asking my teacher, my kid's teacher, and talking to them and seeing what they see every day, in the skills that they're either lacking or the strengths that they have. So I guess that's the best answer I could give you, is talk to a classroom teacher. We're working on a dashboard that hopefully is going to put all that into one place so that teachers can see it very easily. Like all this information, all the iReady, access data, but we're not quite there yet. We're getting
that
there.
dashboard, that's more of what I'm getting at. I mean, as a parent, obviously there's a million things you can look at, and that discussion I think is very important, but especially as educators, when you guys are trying to make decisions on what is and isn't working, I feel like it's probably very complicated to pull the different individual pieces of data because people also interpret that differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that dashboard's probably going to be very useful once it
Mhm.
actually gets where it is. So.
We're close.
Excellent.
Other questions, Megan?
I have a comment and a question, and Carrie, maybe you'll just say, hold that for later, which is totally fine. So first, I wanted to say thank you for access to the data, because I remember we first implemented iReady, but parents didn't really have any visibility to it. So I really appreciate all the efforts that's gone in to share that with parents, because it is really helpful just to kind of see more specifically. This is probably just a huge generalization, and maybe just the answer is no, but this is very aggregated data. So as we drill into it, are there like any specific content areas that we're like, I know it's not that easy, but are there any specific things that you found through this that really should be focus points? And again, Karen, remember you're going to speak to that in the next section, so I'm happy to just hold that.
I'm gonna briefly speak to it.
Okay.
I don't know that we're there yet
Okay.
because with the implementation of IM at Woodland as the first year,
Sure.
I don't know that this data is fair to look at in terms of year one of implementation.
Okay.
There are a lot of conversations that are starting to dig into where are the domains that were strengths, where are the domains that are areas of growth.
Got it.
Where is those areas of growth taught in our scope and sequence? Did we teach it before the MCAS? Did we not? Is that why?
Got
And
it.
starting to do some of that analysis.
Okay.
I would say in year two, the data in the spring of this year will be a lot more helpful
Sure.
to kind of drive those conversations. And then in terms of the Stacy data, this is year one of implementation of a new program. The data from last year is not really that helpful to inform on where we should kind of shift because of the new program that we're putting in
Got
place.
it.
So
That's really helpful. And I also take all of this, also within the context of and then we had a pandemic, right? And so I appreciate that it's not as maybe easy or smooth as it could be. And then obviously we have these new implementations. So thank you for answering that.
You ready?
all right, so
Hold on a second.
Whoa,
Yes,
sorry,
sir.
sorry.
Hey,
I'm
my
sorry.
meeting, not yours.
I'm sorry. I thought we were transitioning.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Brendan, go ahead.
Remind me really quickly, I know it's been said before, what is the definition of chronic absenteeism?
10% or more, so 18 days.
18 days a year, okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if
Doesn't matter. If you're sick,
it's excused or whether otherwise it's 18 days.
right, and so if you remember in 22, yeah, I think it was 22, we were like throwing kids out because I was sitting next to you because you had COVID,
Right.
right? And so you'd be out for a week just because I was sitting next to you.
Right,
And so, that obviously made our numbers go way up.
got it.
There was a little of that last year, but not as much. I don't know. Hopefully, as we get further away from the pandemic, those worries and concerns will come down a little bit. But I don't know. Kids get sick.
Yeah,
But even so, kids get sick. You're still absent. It doesn't matter.
right,
It counts as a day.
got it.
And that's 18 days throughout the school year.
Yes.
180, yeah.
Yeah, but we have a number of kids across our district who have already hit 18 days, and we're 40-something days in.
Yeah.
So, and then we have another group of kids that are definitely on track for being chronically absent.
Sounds
So
like-
it's a real problem, and we need
Yeah.
the support of parents, and we need students to get to school.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's mom and dad. In other cases, it's the student.
All right. Sounds like something for a future agenda item as we can dive a little deeper into that.
Yeah.
But we don't go too far down that path. Anything else?
Yeah, just one
Yeah, go
other
ahead.
question, and maybe this will get addressed later, that's fine.
Mhm.
In addition to actual curriculum, are we looking at other secondary factors playing into these data points? So for example, are we seeing improved scores because kids are actually getting fed at school and they have, the energy to take the test, you know what I'm saying, or to learn throughout the day? Something like if it's cold in high school because there's no heat, is that going to affect their ability to learn for that particular time frame, things of that nature? And it's not an easy question to answer, but something to maybe think about moving forward about how we can make the learning environment leading up to the test also part of the curriculum as a thought.
Thank you.
It's a good question. I'm just not sure how we quantify it.
It's probably not quantifiable.
I think we do a lot at the high
Anecdotally, yeah.
school. So like last year over February and April, we had Math Acceleration Academies where we targeted students that we predicted were going to struggle on the MCAS, and so they came to school during those weeks. We fed them breakfast. They did math for 5 hours. We fed them lunch. We gave them kind of incentives and prizes. So there's things that are in place at the high school level, really because it's a high school requirement, right? And so that motivation of you need to pass this exam to get your CD, we're seeing a lot of growth at the high school level because of those types of interventions that we put into place. It's a little bit trickier at the 3-8 level. They're not as motivated all the time, and we don't put as much efforts into it, to Craig's point, that it's one moment in time, it's one test, it's one data point. But I think overall, big picture, are we having the instruction in place to motivate the kids to be in the classroom, to want to learn the math, to engage, and then we'll see the results on the MCAS.
Josh, I think he wants to say something, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Mr. Riker, just in response to your question, we see a very strong statistical association between attendance and all measures of outcome.
Right.
We have very few students who attend school at rates of 95% and better who do not thrive across every measurable outcome.
Sure.
When attendance drops below 90%, all educational measures of achievement drop off as well.
Thank you.
Do we have a way to sort of, I'm overusing this word tonight, parse out the chronic absentees from our scores and results?
So
I mean, can we
see
extract those and have our, successful attendees results for compare, because chronic absenteeism is drawing it down. But can we see what our results are for the people that have good attendance?
Let me see if I can do that for the English when I come back with English.
Moving on then. We
All
get to
right.
our
I was waiting.
presentations.
Hi, everyone.
So, thank you.
I'm here tonight just to really explain what we're doing across the board in the math department, pre-K to 12 in Milford Public Schools. But I want to remind you that when I first started in 2019, 2020, we came up with this math mission statement for our district, and this is what really drives all of our work. And so the words are great, and I'm not going to read it to you because I really think that the image there is what we keep focusing on as a department. We're trying to create an equitable math learning environment for our students, and one of those pieces we believe is a student-centered experience. And student-centered is a buzzword in education, and part of those are the 4 different pillars that we've defined, which is active collaboration and communication, math growth mindset, persevering with problem solving, and rigorous and culturally relevant tasks. Before we brought in any new programs, we really focused on active collaboration and communication. And when I was here last year in December, I shared with you some statistics around the growth that we saw in terms of students contributing more substantially in classrooms, teachers asking more open-ended and rigorous questions, and students and teachers both using more accurate and precise vocabulary in their contributions. And so we're continuing to see that. I didn't collect that type of data again because it wasn't a pillar of focus last year. But the pillar of focus that we really focused on was rigorous and culturally relevant tasks. And the reason we focused on that is because we brought in illustrative mathematics at our K-5 schools and really focused on what does that mean to implement that piece. But before we really did that, we really looked at what are the structures and systems that we need in place at the district level to make that happen. And we really have been starting, particularly this year, with doing a lot of data analysis. And a little bit of what we've been talking about is we look at iReady scores K-8. We have our teacher leaders really dive into these scores and start to look at some trends and patterns that we're seeing. At the high school level, we don't take iReady, but we take a STAR math test for our Algebra 1 and our geometry students, and we're really using that data to predict MCAS in grade 10, predict students that are going to struggle, predict students that need to be double dosed in grade 10 so that they're ready to go and pass that CD requirement piece. At our K-5 level, we're really focused on them using ST Math, which is a program that I'm going to talk about a little later on, but we know it works for our kids. So what is our progress looking like on a weekly basis? Are we on track to make sure that our students are getting full access to this program and equitable access to this program during the school day? And then we really have been digging this year in particular into the MCAS results that Craig just talked about in 3, 8, and 10. And when I say we're digging into it, I really mean the pre-K to 12 math committee group. And so that group meets once a month together across the board vertically. And we really have, last meeting, we talked about what does the iReady results look like? What do the MCAS results look like? Are they correlated? Are they not correlated? Can we use iReady to make predictions around MCAS, and can we use iReady in the moment to really drive our interventions and think about what our students are going to need? That group this year is doing something a little bit different, where they meet together vertically for 10 times, but they also meet at their building level. And so what we were finding was it was great that we were having these conversations as a vertical team, but the action steps actually needed to happen in the buildings with the teachers and with the administrators. And so this group also meets 5 times every other month in their building base, and they're really focused on taking that data, doing some more data digging at their own individual buildings, identifying the action steps that need to happen, and bringing their colleagues kind of together. A little bit like a grassroots movement, because it's really led by our teachers, but they're doing all this work independently. It's not facilitated by me. They have to have agendas, they have to have timekeepers and note takers and a facilitator, but they're really starting to take that role of being a teacher leader in their building in terms of mathematics. Some of the things that they've done is they've talked about how they're going to have MCAS data chats with grade level colleagues and peers. At Woodland, they're having a cookies, centers, and coffee morning and afternoon, where they're going to really dive into how to use the program and the centers that they were finding that some of the teachers needed. So every school is a little bit different, and they're leading that work. And then this year we're trying something with our math CTLs at Woodland, Stacy, and the high school, where they meet every other month, the 3 of them together, to really build that teacher network and that teacher leader network. And so a CTL role is a unique role, and what it looks like across the 3 different buildings is a little bit different. We have 3 very strong leaders in that role right now at Woodland, Stacy, and the high school, and they can learn a lot together. And so facilitating that conversation with the 3 of them so that they can steal different ideas that are working at different buildings, and really start to talk about some of the transitions that are happening for our students in terms of the mathematics. We're trying that this year to see if that can help bring some vertical consistency, and for them to take some ownership there as well. The other thing that's a little bit different, that's not really related to the other 3 bullet points on there, was over the summer we did a day and a half of onboarding before all of our new teachers K-5. The first day was all about illustrative mathematics, and the second day, or the half day, was all about ST Math. It was really important to us that those new teachers were able to hit the ground running on day 1. So they came even before their mentoring days. We brought in consultants from IM, we brought in consultants from ST Math. We gave them those professional development, we gave them time to plan, we gave them time to dig into the resources, so that when they walked in the first day with their students, they weren't overwhelmed by kind of the expectations that we had laid out with all the other teachers, and the groundwork that we've really done to bring these different programs in as we go forward. And so that's something that we will continue to do moving forward, a day and a half of math training over the summer for our new hires. It will hopefully expand to K-8 as we have different expectations now at Stacy Middle School with our new program, and then slowly grow to the high school as we look forward. So I'm going to go through each school, because each school or grade span is doing something a little bit different, all kind of relating back to that rigorous and culturally relevant tasks. But at Shining Star, we have dedicated math blocks now in the schedule, and so we know that students are getting math. We know that this is the foundation of numeracy and students thinking of themselves as mathematicians, and so it's really important that it doesn't matter if the students only come for 2 half days, that there is time dedicated in those 2 half days for them to do math, and that it's called out in the schedule. And so that's something that's new this year, is that we are very explicit about when we want them engaging in mathematics as our youngest learners. We also have 4 units of study at Shining Star that all of our students work through these 4 different units throughout the course of the year. Our math committee members from Shining Star are working on creating common end of the unit assessments. Along with that is kind of the expectations on how you administer these assessments, and then some rubrics around how you're going to score. What does it look like for mastery? What does it look like for students that are growing towards mastery? And what does it mean for students to need some remediation? And the reason that's important is because we don't want different expectations depending on the teacher that they have. We really want to be clear about what it means to be able to count to 5. And so how are we assessing that counting to 5? We know that it matters, as simple as like, are you just putting bears on the table and they're in random alignment, or are they bears in a row? We know that that's a different for students, and what they can show us they can do depends on how that manipulative is shown to them. And so we're norming around that piece to gather some of that data about where our students are struggling, starting at Shining Star. I am going to kind of group Brookside, Memorial, and Woodland together because they really are on the same journey in year 2 of IM implementation. But before I talk about that, it's important to know that they are continuing to use the ST Math. Our goal is that they are getting to 80% completion. And the reason that 80% is so important is because we know that if they get to 100% completion, we're going to see approximately 13 iReady scaled score point increase on their iReady scores. 13 scaled score points is about a half a year's worth of growth. That data and that analysis that was done removed the teacher effect, removed kind of the growth potential. And so if we see 13 iReady scaled score points that can be directly correlated to ST Math, that means in theory, if our students are getting 1 year's worth of growth from IM and a half a year's worth of growth from ST Math, then we should see 1.5 years worth of growth for our students at the K-5 level if they're reaching that 100% completion. Last year, just to give you an idea where we're kind of at Brookside, we saw 78% completion on average, Memorial 80% completion, and Woodland 51% completion. And so you see that there's work that we need to do at Woodland to increase that percentage if we want to see that direct result on our iReady scaled score points at the end of the spring. We've also worked with the building-based administrators to ensure that we have, first of all, equitable time on math across classrooms and across grade levels, and making sure that they have the time in their schedules to do what we're asking them to do. And so that was a huge struggle our first couple of years when we brought in ST Math. It was like, where are we going to put in ST Math? And so now we have that dedicated time in our schedules. And so for our students at the K2, they have 80 minutes of math per day, 60 minutes of IM, 20 minutes of an ST Math and Center. At 3-4, we have 90 minutes, 60 minutes of IM, 30 minutes for your math centers and ST Math. And then at grade 5, we've been able to increase it to 60 minutes a day, which allows them to get in a full IM lesson, and we find other times to get the ST Math minutes in. I'm going to talk about IM, but I want to preference talking about IM from an implementation dip kind of perspective. And so we know from research that it takes anywhere from 3 years to 7 years to bring in a change and see the results of the change. And there is a lot of research out there that says we should see an implementation dip. Luckily, we did not see a huge implementation dip. We saw 1 or 2 percentage points on the MCAS. In some areas, we saw some growth on the MCAS. I think that that's a good thing. I'm just a little nervous about the fact that it wasn't as big as we were kind of anticipating. But there's 2 types of dips that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about, Craig, you have to switch this side.
Need the beat.
The performance dip, right? And so over time, we should see this dip in performance. And so we're not back up to that current performance level. And I would almost argue the current performance level that we want to see is that 2019 prior to the pandemic, before we really can say that we have the desired performance level. We want to get back to that baseline of 2019 to then say that this program is actually working. The goal is to reduce the length and depth of that dip. And hopefully we've seen kind of the most amount of the dip that we're going to see, but you never know in a year of implementation in year 2. Again, it takes 3 to 7 years. The other implementation dip that is more of our social emotional implementation dip is really for our teachers and the frustration level that kind of the beginning of change happens. And so you can either think about this in terms of 5 different stages or the emotions that they've experienced. And we definitely went through these emotions last year as a math committee, as a math department at the K-5 level. And I would say right now we're really in this like informed optimism stage or this like decision stage. I think we have a lot of work to get to our success and fulfillment, or we have a lot of work to say like this is fully integrated in our day-to-day practice. But I think at this point I can say that we've kind of worked through that valley of despair or that depression or this like, this isn't gonna work, but this is where a lot of people get stuck. They then throw the program out the door and they say like, we're gonna try something new. And so sticking with this to really see the results is really important. And I spoke a lot with the math committee in particular last year about these emotions that they were experiencing, that their colleagues were experiencing, and how to support each other kind of through this. And we were gonna continue to push through this because this is where we're trying to get to. Knowing that, last year, in our implementation of illustrative math, it was all about implementing the program with integrity. And it was really important that we said integrity and not fidelity, because integrity meant that the teachers and the students were following the program to meet the needs of the students in front of them. They needed to teach every lesson, but not every single classroom needed to be on the same lesson on the same day at the same time. If they were a day or two ahead or behind, or they needed to make some accommodations or scaffolds to lessons, they were allowed to do that. It was not a script that they were being handed to read out of. We really focused on language supports last year. We spent a lot of time identifying ELD standards, language objectives, microfunctions, sentence frames, and creating a vertical word wall for our students in that K-5 area. This year, we're focusing more on the assessment piece. And so we spent a lot of time this summer looking at all the end-of-unit assessments. K-5, I had a team of teachers that worked over the summer in partnerships with Jen Norjanian and the L department to first of all make sure that our assessments were aligned to MCAS. And so on the IM, the questions might ask something like, select all expressions that are equivalent to 5/4. Well, on the MCAS, they tell the students how many expressions. So why are we telling them to select all? Why not tell them select 3 expressions? We're not changing the rigor of the problem. We're not changing the content of the problem. We're really just teaching them some test-taking strategies that are important in life without directly teaching to the test. And so we made those types of changes for all of our students. We then took that end of unit assessment and we amplified the language or accommodated the language for our ELP level 2-3 students. So really thinking about what are the scaffolds that we know our students need, what is the language simplification that they need, again, without changing the math or the cognitive demand of the questions in terms of what they were being asked to do mathematically. We then took it and we took it a level deeper and we said, okay, what are our newcomer students going to do? How are they going to access this end of unit assessment and show us their mathematical abilities? And so we added pictures, we added sentence frames, we added word wall kind of right on their test, and so they're right there for them. We also added some native language clarification, and so the directions are read to them in Spanish or Portuguese, but the actual math that they're being taught on a day-to-day basis is being assessed in English. And then what we said with our special ed students, it's a little bit trickier. We can't make blanket assessments that are a SPED accommodated assessment because every single student with a disability has a different need according to their IEP. But we've been using these language amplified versions as a basis to then further modify or accommodate depending on individual students. And so it's a little bit easier for our special education educators to make those amplifications, accommodations, or modifications depending upon the individual IEP that a student is requiring. The other thing that's exciting is that we just received a high quality implementation grant to kind of continue this work, stipend teachers to do all of this work around assessments, bring in some professional development to kind of continue this work as we go throughout the course of the school year, particularly at the K-5 level. Stacy Middle School is basically following the same type of trajectory that Woodland and Brookside and Memorial were on. This year they are implementing IM again with integrity. It's about do the program this year. We did similar things where we are really focusing on those language supports, same type of accommodations and amplifications we did at the K-5, we did at the 6-8 level. We did receive some funding from a grant to support the purchase of materials and manipulatives and the consumables that we know go along with this curriculum, which is really what makes it more student-centered than what we had before. And we've also partnered this year with Summit View Learning Consultants. They come in and they unit plan with our teachers. They're on site 8 days throughout the course of the school year. They're working to either look ahead at the unit that's coming so that the teachers really understand the math that's coming up in Unit 3 before they're actually teaching it on a day-to-day basis. They're also demoing in some classrooms what the lesson can look like, and the teachers are coming in and watching that, and then they're doing a debrief together. And they're also really focused on step 1 of the UBD, or Understanding by Design, unit template. What are the identified desired results and concepts and contexts that we want our students to get from this unit? Let's have that conversation before we teach the unit so that we really understand the scope of it all. There's a few other things at Stacy that are going on that are not IM related. So we started a Math Connections class this year, and this is a special, a trimester special that all students in each of the 3 grade levels are receiving. The idea behind here is that we added a year of math in the 3 years that they're at Stacy Middle School. And so if they get a trimester in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, we're adding that 1 more year of math-focused instruction in their classrooms. But we also knew we couldn't just do another math class, and that would be really boring for kids and would not turn them on to being mathematicians. And so what we're doing is we're really focusing on 2 pieces. We're focusing on financial literacy. We have a partnership with Fit Money, who develops some units and lessons for our teachers to use with our students. We're currently developing a partnership with Rapunzel, which is a stock market type of game where students get a certain amount of money, they go and they buy stocks, and what's exciting about this is that they will invest in those stocks in 6th grade. They might do it in 6th grade trimester 1. Well, when they come back in trimester 2 of their 7th grade, their stocks will be still sitting there. And so they'll get to see over time that growth of the stock and kind of have some conversations around that financial literacy that's really important for us to bring in. We really want this class to also be more project-based learning, and so we have a partnership through the 1-8 Foundation with PBL Now, which is really in an alpha. It's not open to all districts in Massachusetts. They're really writing and trying out different things in the classroom in terms of units that are more hands-on, that are directly aligned to our IM implementation and this program of study that they are working through. We also received a grant from the Metro West Foundation to pilot an after-school virtual math tutoring club. And so that tutoring club started in September. It will run through May. We identified 26th grade students that started with us in September and will stay with us through May. They get 3 days a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. They get 30 minutes of virtual tutoring with a program called Saga Education. And it is with different tutors throughout the state of Massachusetts. They meet with them virtually online, and they do their tutoring through there. Metro West is interested in trying out, does this tutoring have an impact? And the research that they've read says that it takes 90 hours of tutoring to actually make an impact. And this program, because the students are getting it 3 days a week from September through May, will give them those 90 hours, and we'll see if this is something that we should invest in kind of moving forward, and if it's making a difference. I've been in there a couple of times, and the kids are excited to tell you all about the adult that was on the screen and the tutor that taught them some math, and so seeing that excitement after school is a great way to enrich the kids in mathematics. And then at the high school, there's not as much going on, but we are currently in the middle of field testing 2 high-quality instructional materials for adoption in the fall. We are looking at Algebra 1 Geometry and Algebra 2. We're not looking at any of the other courses at this point in time. Those are kind of the first 3. It will also affect Stacy Middle School, because Stacy Middle School has Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and so whatever the high school decides to adopt in terms of Algebra 1, Stacy will be adopting in terms of Algebra 1 as well, and so that our courses are aligned. And that will be a new material initiative expense in the budget request for both Stacy and the high school, because we know it will cost more money than we're currently spending on our homegrown teacher-made materials. So that's how we're addressing the gaps that we're seeing across the board. Is really focused on not just bringing in the new programs, but what are the new ways that we can kind of think about mathematics, what are the different teaching that's required, and how do we support our teachers in making that shift.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, all that information. Craig, anything for you to add before we open it up to the committee, or?
Only
Sure,
about
Mr. Taylor
Carrie.
took care of everything.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's a fantastic leader. I think that hopefully it's shown through right through our presentation. I think the teachers, I wish there was more of her, because the teachers just demand so much of her time because of just the support, her knowledge, and just her ability to rally people around something that they don't necessarily go willingly towards. So I really appreciate that about Carrie.
Excellent. I appreciate that. So I'll open it up to the committee for questions or comments. It was very, very comprehensive, so we really appreciate that. There's a lot of information there too, which we also appreciate. So, and it looks like that we'll be ready for some budget initiatives to be coming down the pipeline. So that is also very appreciative to hear it now and have an understanding of what's coming down. So we appreciate that aspect. So again, Megan, go ahead.
Yeah, tremendous amount of work, Carrie, so thank you for consolidating it all for us so we can try to digest it. You know, as a parent, it's interesting to see the implementation side, so definitely exciting to see kind of all the new programs. I think the Mass Connections is super exciting for Stacy, the potential there. I was just curious the feedback that you've received on that from both students and teachers.
I haven't received a ton, to be
Okay.
honest. My
Okay.
attention is really on the IM implementation.
Got it. Understood.
A lot of the financial literacy, I think students are loving. The feedback I've heard from a couple of the teachers is that they've never talked so much in the math classroom because they're actually interested. Some of the lessons that Fit Money put together are taking 2 days, 3 days, and they're asking if that's okay. And I'm like, if the kids are engaged and you're talking numbers and you're talking numeracy and financial literacy, I fully support it taking more than the lesson plan might say. I also think that that's a class that allows us some of that flexibility to meet the needs of our students in. I don't typically hear those types of exciting questions, so that's a good thing. I have not heard much else.
I was just curious. Yeah, excellent. Just because it is new. And 100% of students are getting that. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that's so excellent, and particularly as your focus is student-centered learning. I think exactly to that point, you now have students in a math class that they're excited about, and I'm sure that will trickle down to all of these other kind of initiatives and programs as well. I can certainly say that ST Math does that. I mean, the kids get so excited about, GG and that. So kudos to the creators of those exciting things, and certainly for all the work that you're doing. So thank you. Thanks, Chris.
No problem. Any other questions, comments? Michael?
Thank you for what you do. I would love to see this in other disciplines in the school if we can. I know we're doing some reading. But to Meg's point, my daughter is in 2nd grade and comes home talking about ST Math. So it's great.
Who knew that the penguin would be so exciting?
Yeah, it's really great. So.
Excellent. Comments? I guess quickly, we have ST Math, Illustrative Math, and iReady, just from a higher level. They're all different, but they all implement in different ways.
Yeah, so iReady is our diagnostic tool that students take that. We use it as an assessment. We don't use the online instruction component in math. We just use the diagnostic test. Right. So they take it in September, January, and May. It gives us the instant feedback that MCAS doesn't give us. Mm-hmm. It's still a standardized assessment in a sense. We don't see the questions ahead of time. The questions are randomized. They're not necessarily only the topics that we've covered so far in the school year, which I think is a powerful tool because we're not teaching to the test, right? And so it's giving us some good, valid data of where our students are kind of standing. IM, or Illustrative Math, I would say, is our core program. That's our Tier 1 program that all students should be getting. They are also getting it in our partial inclusion settings with some modifications being made across the board where we're really bringing in some previous grade level standards that need to be addressed or meeting the needs of the students that they're at. ST Math is all students should be accessing ST Math, but I think of it more of as our supplement to our Tier 1. It's still a part of our Tier 1 because it's not for students that need an intervention or need something additional. All students need ST Math as a part of it. But if you were to ask me what's our main program is IM. And I think what's great about it is that we can take ST Math, we can reorder the objectives to align to the way that we are using IM, and then we're really empowering teachers to say, you know, if a student is struggling on a particular skill, assign them a previous grade level standard that they might need. Or if a student is really excelling in something, push them ahead to the next objective before you teach it, so that they're really able to work at their own pace, and kind of see things where they're at as opposed to what the teacher is presenting in a teacher-directed manner.
Sounds good. I appreciate that. Yeah, 'cause I knew IM was the biggest directive, and it's nice to hear how those other two, we've always used them, and they're continuing to be used, even though we've put most of our effort into the IM side of it. So, great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, again, thank you very much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Obviously, still some work to do based on some MCAS scores that we have, but we know that we're going in a good direction, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our Milford High School boiler discussion. Obviously, I added this on in light of the recent event of the boiler going down. So just trying to kind of talk to that. Josh, yes, feel free to join us, and just trying to get an update of, you know, where we were, where we're at, and where we're going. So.
All right, well, I can speak to our boilers. Essentially, when we went to open the boilers, which has to involve the insurance company for inspection, as well as who am I thinking?
State inspector.
State inspector, thank you. They have to coordinate and come in together in order for that to happen. And when they opened the boiler, we have 1 and 3 that we work on or heat with. Boiler number 2 is offline and has been for a very long time. But our system and the age of it, it's a very simple system, and it runs strictly on water. And we should have been doing better maintenance in terms of when we close the boiler. You want to make sure it's very, very dry. And number 2, if you're showing any significant rust, or that your tubes, which we're very aware of our tubing system, if in fact they are showing signs of wear, that's a sign that we need to make some kind of modification to our system so that the life of those tubes that we install will have a better lifespan. And 2 ways to do that. One is put in a filtration system so that you're not running such hard water through your pipes of the Cleaver Brooks, or if that's not an option, there is a chemical that you can, after you tube, you can run through the system, and that's essentially like a sealant, and will protect the tubes as the water is going through to heat our building. And essentially, these Cleaver Brooks machines are like a giant, I'm going to call it a tea kettle, for lack of a better word. And as they heat up, it's just pushing the steam through our buildings. So you really want to take, you know, good care of those tubes. Now, moving forward, speaking with those systems, Carlos made those 2 recommendations on how we could better protect the tubes within our high school boilers, and he is looking at both because as we know, we're retubing right now and over the weekend. We were fortunate enough for one of the boiler number 1 is down 10% on the tubes, and we were able to acquire through borrowing and begging through different vendors, that we've acquired enough tubes to get those in place over the weekend and fire up, hopefully, boiler number 1 either, well, I'm going to say early next week. So that's the good news on boiler 1. Boiler 3, again, is, you know, 175 tubes have to be replaced due to, you know, not having those 2 maintenance systems available to us to extend the life of the tubes.
Anything else from administration that they want to add before opening it up for questions or comments? I guess, you know, and obviously this is kind of an unforeseen circumstance with a budgetary impact that we will have to keep an eye on. We don't know what that is yet, but certainly that's also why I felt like it was important to talk about this. I've already had conversations with Al Correa from FinCom, so be prepared to meet with them just as far as next steps and just to keep them aware of, again, something that has occurred that we haven't officially, that we haven't budgeted for, and the impact to our overall budget. So, open it up to questions or comments at this time. Megan, go
I
ahead.
have just 2 clarifying questions, kind of make sure I'm understanding. So how do we actually heat the building with the boilers in terms of, do you require 1 and 3 at all times? Does one work, how does that actually just mechanically work? Sorry.
From my understanding, we generally run on 1 boiler.
Okay, so if one is up and running, the building can be
Yes.
heated. So if
Yep.
this weekend works on Monday, theoretically, we
Perfect.
would have heat. Excellent.
And that's also what from my conversation with Carlos today, that was also my
Excellent.
understanding, that
Okay.
1 is sufficient
Great.
to heat the entire building.
Okay, excellent. And then my understanding, the little that it is on the cost of the tubing, is that is not particularly extensive. So to the extent we were able to get
That's within budget.
if we're able to find it, we could make that work. So we'll be
Correct.
able to get the 2 up. Okay, that's great.
Where,
Thank you.
where we got a little bit concerned in terms of the financial piece was to install a temporary boiler if it was going to be a long-term
Got it.
solution need.
Got it.
We were looking at upwards of $70,000 for 1 month.
Got it.
So that was a concern.
Understood.
But then fortunately, those
Okay.
tubes became available between the vendor that we're now currently working with, which they've been, we're new to them and they've been very accommodating. So Energy Construction Services in Auburn has been great.
Great. I think it's obviously very unfortunate that it happened. I think it speaks to, where we are with the needs of the building. So kudos to the team for, rushing to get it together, and glad it was in, October, November versus January
Yes.
in terms of timing. So
Good point,
Certainly.
positive point.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, Mike.
Mine's more of an operational question for the administrators of the room. So, the minimum standard for temperature for classrooms is 66 to 68 degrees, right? So next week, assuming, knock on wood, hopefully it's working sooner than later. What's the plan for when a classroom drops below that? Is there a plan to move that classroom temporarily? So basically, at what point do we start making decisions to shut down wings or rooms or stuff like that? I don't know if that's.
I can't speak to minimum temperatures in classrooms. If there is a minimum standard, I beg your pardon, I'm not familiar with it. If it is, I think it's important to be transparent with the committee. For most months of the school year, most classrooms in this building are below 66 degrees.
Yeah, so the Department of Labor standards is, it's actually.
So
obviously,
is that acceptable to you? Being below 66 degrees?
I would prefer to have it warmer.
Okay, so something I guess I wish I knew earlier, but okay.
So I guess there is no plan to relocate rooms. Or
I don't believe it would be viable to place all classrooms in rooms that are over 66 degrees for most of the school year.
Okay, fair.
And can I just
Yeah.
interject? It may be possible, it may be that we have chosen to run our classrooms at those temperatures. So I don't want to speak to that our systems are not capable of going above 66 degrees. I just want to be clear with that before we make any determination that our systems are not functioning properly.
So the second question was.
Well, that's easy. They're not functioning at all right now.
Right now, no.
Right.
What is the backup plan for heat if for some reason it can't get fixed by, say, Wednesday? Right, because I looked at the weather for the next 10 days, right?
We're
And the
doing
weather
better.
is, it trends down, but it trends back up. But it's still not going to get above 60, which means that the building's going to cool down further and further during the weekend. So by Monday, it's going to be a lot colder, right? And so I'm concerned that if this continues to drop down into the low 60s, high 50s, what is the backup plan to, heat the building?
Well, we're going live with the rental for the month.
Oh, that 70 grand.
Correct, and that is the existing vendor that I just mentioned. They do have portable boilers in that capability. So that's our backup plan.
Okay, and how quickly does that come in?
We've got it set up in terms of everything is cleared if they had to come in They know where they're going, they have a pipe they can access. But we're looking to make that determination before Sunday, or I should say on Sunday, we'll know more.
Right,
So work is going to be going on.
That's great. So assuming Sunday night, you're like, hey, we gotta pull these guys in, like how quickly do they come in? Is it like within like a day, 2 days, a week?
They'll be here all weekend.
Oh, so the
The
emergency.
same yes.
The work's ongoing.
You're talking from the, in the event,
In the event
the
we can't get
current
the one
boilers-
fixed and we have to bring the temporary boiler
Yeah.
in, how quickly does that happen?
That's the existing vendor that will be here.
Oh.
So my impression is they, being very well aware with what's happening, they know our needs and concerns. And we're very hopeful to have heat early next week. If not, that plan will have to go into place.
So the
I
vendor-
can't tell you the number of hours it's going to take.
No, it makes me feel better that the vendor who's trying to fix it has a backup solution,
Yes.
so they're well aware that this might happen. Okay, that's, thank you.
Brendan?
Do we run the risk of any further damage of not having heat on over the next 4 days, 5 days?
I don't think it's gonna get cold enough for that, Brendan. Is that what you mean?
That's
in
what,
terms-
yeah. Like
Yeah,
any
I'm watching the
pipes or-
temperatures. I
yeah.
think we're gonna
Mhm.
be high 50s for the next few days,
Okay.
so that's a good thing.
Okay,
Mhm.
just wanted to make sure.
The nights are cool.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah, it gets cold at night.
Questions?
So,
Yeah, go
maybe more of a comment. I think this is the most comprehensive evaluation of our heating systems in any building that we've had. It, from Ms. Perry, who's not, you know, a facilities manager, in my time on this committee. I think that the facilities department of the past has certainly dropped the ball on some things, whether it's evaluation, projection, maintenance, or all of the above. I think when we look, we keep talking every year about, you know, our MSBA, do I get the right acronym?
MSBA.
Submittal. We didn't have any details like this, that 4 years ago, the tubes were replaced, and 6 years prior, they rotted out, or whatever it is. I think we have to, and I'm pointing at myself with this as a facility subcommittee member, and we need to get much better documentation on the condition of our facilities and its infrastructure. This was never pointed out. We you know, in our report, you know, we have aging facilities and components. Okay, great. That's yeah, that's a conversation piece, but that's not a report. I think we need to, and this isn't a knock on the current facilities team because they're brand new. It's just an observation. It's not a knock on anything, but we have to get our arms around this as a whole. But right now we're dealing with a crisis, so we have to deal with the crisis first, and then we'll deal with the rest of the infrastructure and the evaluations a little bit more holistically. But we frankly, Kathy, you've given us more insight than anybody else in this district has to date.
Go ahead, Matt.
So, I mean, to John's point, I want to be careful because I think there's a lot of questions that we have that we want to ask. It probably starts at the subcommittee level with other people in the room. But I'm curious to know, I wrote it here somewhere. You noted that we really couldn't open those up until the inspector was here from the state, right?
Yes, and the insurance company.
Was that a date that was set from the previous inspection last year, or was that something
No,
that
they
was
typically-
recently set up?
Sorry, they typically reach out to us end of September, early October. They give you a 7-day notice, and then they're here.
Okay, so they're setting it for us.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's important to know because I know I fielded a bunch of questions of why we waited so long, and after speaking with Mr. Wilson, it was not necessarily that we were just ignoring the problem. There was a process in place that we didn't have control over, and that's one of the reasons why now is the time that this problem was found. But I think that's definitely important to point out. Thank you.
Yeah, because I had those same questions of, you know, when we did the school readiness report, I just assumed that everything was ready to go, but then basically through that conversation with Kathy and Carlos, it was known that there are other factors that are required in order to fire up that boiler for the first time. So it's unlike us that on the cold night when we can just go over to our thermostat and kick on the heat, you know, there are far more checks and balances for our system. So unfortunately that came at a time when it got very cold out. You know, my thing with talking with Carlos, and we all know Carlos, he's the eternal optimist, right? So, and changing out the those heating rods, heat exchanging rods, he's very, very confident, very, very optimistic that things are gonna be going okay, and that we'll be able to procure the next set of heat exchanging rods for the other boiler number 3. You know, I'm a little bit more of a pessimist, I guess you could say, so that's why I'm a little bit driving towards the what-if scenario, because these rods were changed out 4 years ago, and now they've rotted out, so there was something happened from the preventative maintenance side to cause them to rot out within the last 4 years, and I'm concerned with we're not changing out 100% of the rods in boiler 1. We're changing out the ones that we know are leaking, and I worry about the ones that are hanging on that are almost leaking. So that's why. So to know that we have a contingency plan is good, because although that contingency plan is expensive, it's only going to get colder as the days go on. So I think we need to be ready as a committee to be able to absorb that and understand those costs. So, you know, and I've let Kathy know on that to please let us know, because again, it's going to be a significant cost as far as there's cost for trucking that unit here, and then there is cost just from a operational standpoint, and you don't get to do it day by day, week by week. It is a month-long rental, as you heard, so it's important. Go ahead, Michael.
Super quick, I think we should put on a near future agenda, further discussion, longer term about heating is, you know, I believe Josh is, if it's that cold in here, then I think we have a good solid decision or discussion about how to get the temperature up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Throughout the whole building.
Yeah, definitely. Megan.
Sorry, it's been, Kathy, quite some number of months since I've read the SOI section in regards to the boiler, so I apologize that that's not all fresh in my mind, but this is definitely secondary to academic needs. Is the pool heated on a separate boiler, and is the pool open?
The pool is definitely separate than
Okay,
the
because it references that boiler. We talk about 1,
Yes.
2, and 3 in here, and then we also talk about the pool, so that's totally separate.
I'm 99% sure it's propane heat.
It says gas, yep.
Yeah,
Exactly,
which-
okay. Oh, fair
yes.
enough, it's not
Yeah.
that, right, okay, thank you. I was just curious if that was also
And I think it's a
impacted,
smaller unit.
which would make sense. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem. Other questions? Josh, are we, like, I guess in a sense, are we allowing teachers to bring in space heaters, and is there anything that we should be concerned with? You know, I'll look towards John from the electrical side of it, just in his knowledge base, that obviously, if, you know, are teachers allowed, are they disallowed? What's the directive from trying to heat their spaces on a personal level?
I have not received a question from a teacher regarding space heaters in my 6 1/4 years here.
Okay. I'm assuming we have them here in-house, because it's like their own personal.
I think they're a fire code
Can they? So,
concern.
okay.
No, I don't, there's no concern. If somebody plugged a space heater in any place, as long as you're not using it on an extension cord, it's as safe as using it in your house. I mean, if the circuit can handle it, it can handle it. If not, the circuit breaker trips. But you have a factory heater and a factory cord, you plug it in.
Mhm.
I don't know what any in-house rules might be on that, but from a general safety perspective, there isn't a concern.
Mhm.
Concern is when you use an undersized extension cord to plug it, plug a heater in a certain spot, and the cord overheats and
Right.
and something goes wrong. But I don't know what any directive is here from
I've not provided any guidance for teachers with regards to space heaters.
Okay.
Based on personal experience, I anticipate that we will have a lot of circuit breakers tripping.
Right.
If we were to have
Right.
a lot of space heaters plugged in.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just kind of more preparedness for teachers to understand, for Carlos to understand, and just globally we're trying to do our best at conditioning certain rooms that may have more drafty windows and are getting well below comfortable, and to try to take a little of that chill off of those rooms, and I can fully understand that. I just want to make sure that we're able to support those teachers, those students, in being able to allow them to be able to bring space heaters in, and that we as a committee, or me personally, I would support that. I just want to make sure, like I said, I look towards someone like John with his electrical experience in what he just said, just to ensure that if they are to bring in the space heaters, let's make sure that they're operating them appropriately, and that they know that someone like John that has that experience and knows how they should be operated appropriately, that message is conveyed to them. Michael?
And I was just gonna say, the other environmental concern is you wanna obviously make sure there's no fabric or paper near the heaters.
Right.
I actually wouldn't expect very many circuit breakers to trip, because in the days, even in commercial these days, they only put 6 to 8 plugs on a circuit. Yes, if you had 2 rooms side by side and each one had 4, they're on the same circuit, and you had 2 11-amp heaters, they might trip the breaker, but that's still not a safety concern. The breaker's doing its job. But it's more, papers or, again, undersized cords that I would be concerned about.
Okay. Great. Michael, did you have something?
Yeah, I just think it's a bad idea.
Well, again, right, that's what I'm worried about, right? I want to be able to make sure that,
Can we ask the fire chief?
yeah,
I think the worry is kids getting burned too.
that too, right?
Too much.
So,
Just
well,
make a decision.
we are dealing with high school kids, so, hopefully that I understand, but I would hope that,
Feel better.
yeah, so,
Again, that's why I'd
Again.
look to the chief of the house to give his guidance to his staff.
so,
I'd be happy to consult with Chief Nelson.
Yeah.
I'm not confident that I have the knowledge required to provide appropriate guidance to the staff in terms of what's permitted by law and what's safe for the facility.
okay. Well,
I mean, I'm not gonna speak for Chief Nelson, but with a properly listed heating appliance plugged into a properly grounded and powered cord, it's not going to be a fire hazard. It might be a safety hazard if somebody touches it,
Yeah.
just like a steam radiator in somebody's house. That's why they make guards on that. Would be a concern. This is a problem. We have a cold building. What are you gonna allow your teachers to do? That's your decision. From a safety perspective, I'm certainly one to speak about that. There isn't one with a proper appliance that has a factory cord. So, you gotta decide what to do with this.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm pretty dead against it. Sorry. I just keep thinking about, so if we don't control or have guidance on what type of, I agree with John, he's 100% right. I'm not concerned about.
And I'm not providing the guidance on what to do. I'm
No,
providing it from a general perspective.
But if a
Right.
teacher brings in a wonky space heater from 1960 without with the proper safeguards,
Right.
and it has a proper wire, but the actual heating element, it has, I just think it's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
I would like to personally, I don't know if we need to make a vote, but I think bringing space heaters into the schools, the building is actually an absolutely horrible idea for many reasons.
Well, the good news is we're moving forward with the boiler
Right.
repair.
Yeah.
And we will revisit if in fact Monday we don't have heat.
Right.
So let's just
Yep.
table that for further discussion. But the building is so large with so many people in this building, that could become a problem.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I just wanted to kind of bring that up. I walked through today, it wasn't terrible. There was
No, it's
kids,
not
there, we're New England, there's some kids that you still see go to school with shorts on, right? So there was kids that I saw with t-shirts on, and there were students that I saw with sweatshirts and blankets over their head and wrapped around them. So I think it varied to the dynamics of the student, but it also, we have lots of students with that tolerate the conditions differently too, right? So,
Yeah, coming
just
from the
be
guy from
mindful.
Maine.
Thank you. Well played. So.
And can I just comment real quick? I don't want to take anybody's time as it's getting late, but the dedication that the new maintenance team has and the work that they're doing together and the pride that they already have in our buildings is just, it's been really nice to witness, to see how, they're such a unit and they work so well together. They really are, becoming a great team for the Milford School Department. I can't say enough about them. I just wanted to give them a quick shout out.
No, we appreciate that too.
Yeah,
I
they
think
really
that's
are
important, yeah.
great guys.
Like I said, Carlos is an optimist, which is great. So,
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. Yes.
To that
Unless-
point, thank you for bringing it up. I actually bumped into them, I think it was late last week, came in the back door, and Carlos and the 2 guys were there.
Mhm.
And I had a great conversation for 15 minutes, and they just, they were just this wealth of knowledge and energy, and it was just really nice to see this
Yeah.
positive vibe from that group.
Yep,
So.
I agree.
All right, anything else on that one? All right, let's move on to the cafeteria tables. Obviously, this is something that's, we brought one in just to show, kind of went from the show and tell side of it, and just to show the condition that the tables are in, and this is one of many that are seen down there. I I raised it up last year during a meeting that I had for the junior class auction, and a lot of the parents, made note of it to me. And the hope was to try to change these tables out. And we're here a year later, and I guess a little bit disappointed that we're looking at the same tables that are probably even worse than they were from students picking at them. So I wanted to bring it up and see what this committee can do to help support the administration team of changing these out. And if it requires us trying to find some money from other places, that's why I want to bring it up. So I'll open it up to the administration staff to give comment first, and then we'll go from that direction. All right.
Josh, you want to speak to what you've done so far?
Certainly, I've met with Carla Tuttle, our food service director. I learned that Carla has a significant sum in a revolving account. She has sought quotes from a vendor on the state bid list for new tables. We have received schematic designs for multiple layouts in the cafeteria. We've not yet been able to get an actual price quote from the vendor. Carla messaged me earlier today, and let me just pull this up so I don't misspeak. Believe there's cafeterias purchased at Brookside in the last couple of years. Is that right? Brookside or Memorial, one of the K2 schools.
It's not Brookside, it would have to be Memorial.
Carla believes that those tables, which, just as a comparable price point, were approximately $3,000 each. So, if we were to do a sort of full-scale replacement of all of the tables in the cafeteria, I think we're looking under $250,000. Carla feels relatively confident that she should be able to finance the purchase through her revolving account.
Great. Good to know. Questions, comments, feedback? Michael?
So, two thoughts. Thought one. So from a food safety perspective, I would not be able to open a restaurant with these tables. So food code says you cannot have any unsealed wood or particle board on a table. Just to be really straightforward, just Serve Safe certified. The Board of Health, Joan would have just.
Thanks, Joan.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's true. That we would not be able to open up a restaurant with tables. So that said, something has to be done quickly. Number two, I think everybody in this room takes some responsibility. School committee, we didn't do a walkthrough last year. We have 7 administrators in this building. So I don't understand why somebody didn't say, wow, these tables kind of suck. We should go get some new ones. And so I think there's some responsibility on the entire administrative staff who are in this building and housed, especially when we brought it over a year ago to school committee and made a to-do like these tables. So I'm generally this is probably the first time I'm generally disappointed with our administrative staff, especially with our kids eating on these tables. And so they need to get fixed quick. Two, if the Board of Health walked in, they'd be like, yeah, you got to throw these tables away. You can't have them. So please get them fixed.
Well, and at this point, I hope they walk in Monday, because I wasn't aware of the health code. I had a cursory knowledge of this because we talked about it last year, and I'm sorry I jumped in, but.
No, so good.
Yeah, any unsealed wood is not allowed in the food area.
I think it speaks a little bit to what VD had said too, as far as, just trying to better the experience here at the high school. And if that's one thing that we can focus on to help better our high school experience, our high school students' experience, and it lays on us too to try to push along and support any sort of directives to get this done quickly. Yes.
Last question. So I think when things like this happen, sometimes somebody's not assigned to own it, right? And so from this committee's perspective, my question to somebody is, does Carla own this? Does Josh own it since he's a principal? Does facilities own it? Like who owns the furniture in the whole building, or even just the cafeteria? Like who owns that?
Well, I can tell you I think there's always confusion in this building because it houses central office and, facilities is here. But within the other buildings, a principal would be responsible to order their cafeteria tables. Carla's being very generous with her time and her money to take this on, and kudos to Carla. So we appreciate her work on this. I was actually at the meeting when she asked our nutrition liaison if we could use the funds, because up until probably after COVID, we never would be able to use nutrition funds to purchase cafeteria tables.
Last question, do we do food inspections? Does the Board of Health come in?
Oh, yeah.
And inspect the table?
Yeah. I don't know what their inspections involve, but they are of course here and come in and view our kitchens.
And so when they come in, who liaisons? Is it Josh or is it Carla?
For
I don't-
the
I don't meet
nutrition,
with them.
Carla would be responsible for
Okay.
her kitchen.
Okay. And then Carla reports to
Me.
you? Okay. So there, right there,
But would the food service director be responsible in every building, or just this building because that's where food service is based?
I can experience at Woodland is the Board of Health would come in and they would go right to the kitchen and meet with the kitchen staff.
The kitchens are under Carla's
Well,
department.
the kitchens, I mean, I'm not talking about the cooking side of it.
Okay.
I'm more talking about, the table side of it. I mean,
I'm not,
and that's
honestly,
probably,
I'm not sure
maybe
if
it's probably a gray area, but.
yeah, I'm not even sure they look at tables. I know they go into the kitchen and
I don't know either.
And that's
Yeah.
99% of the concern, right? From a health perspective, the table is probably 1% of a of potential.
Yeah, I'm just, again, thinking, when a health inspector comes in, they liaison with the person who's in charge of the kitchen. They're supposed to inspect the dining area as well, too. So, bad on them as well. And
Oh,
so-
no, I'm sure,
right?
Throw
yeah.
everything under the bus, Mike.
Right? But still, no, seriously, right?
Really
And so typically somebody owns the food space, and usually that person has to be Safe Serve certified, right? And so that's where I'm going with all this, and Josh is not Safe certified, right? So, anyways, I think there might be a chain of command issue here with maybe who owns that space, right? And anyways, that's it, my comments.
Brendan?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Either
just
one.
gonna add a little context. I did speak with the food services director as well. I know Josh said we don't have a finalized quote with a total price. The walkthrough and evaluation or assessment of the space was done last Friday.
Okay.
So it's it seems like it's pretty much in line. But the only question I had, how many tables are we talking roughly?
Don't believe Carla sent me the schematic. I'd be happy to email the committee tomorrow. I don't want to give you the wrong number. I'll email you tomorrow with the number of tables that we think we're going to need to seat all of our students.
Thank you.
So that table would be what we have here is 2 tables.
That's considered two.
2 tables,
So it's $3,000 for a half a table.
correct.
Yeah.
But are the tables like at Memorial and Woodland that connect
To make
and the
benches.
backs come up?
Well, that's true. This is probably a different. May not necessarily be that table, right?
No.
It's,
I
it's
think
something to use the
before
space
any-
better than we're.
They're probably benches and not seats.
I think we have
Fit
to
more
involve
benches.
the custodial department, just from my point of view, because they have to manage these tables, and if we buy something labor intensive, they may not be able to make the shift after meals and whatnot, so just, Josh, make sure Mike Powers has a say.
But no, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Brandon,
I'm sorry.
For
No,
the
go.
for the future, like what's the lifespan on these tables typically that we'd expect, so that we budget in our capital plan among all the schools?
I think they're
Right.
I think they were there when we were in high school.
I don't doubt it. I mean, and you're like what, 100 years old now?
Wow, everybody's throwing jabs.
Shots, man.
John, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, somehow this fell through the cracks for a year, because we're not waiting a year for a call, right? We don't have any numbers today because we didn't act on it, which is fine, because everybody has more to do than they can keep up with. We're talking about heating problems, we're talking about the fact that the high school's never been maintained to the optimal temperature. We've talked in the past about roof issues, we've talked in the past about auditorium issues, and somebody here or somewhere else in this district needs to own this stuff. And if the answer is we don't have enough money for new tables, we'll go find it. If the answer is, whatever the answer to the question is, we have to address it, because it can't go on with tables, with auditorium, with roof, with boilers. I mean, and we're not operational. I mean, I've spent the last 8 years here saying I'm trying not to get into operations, not trying to get down into the weeds. but somebody else has to, because this is just, this is, you know, I mean, we heard that two liaisons here today. It's just, you know, it's a problem for them. It's just unacceptable to me. We gotta fix it. I'm not looking to go backwards and say, why did this happen? But I'm looking to go forward and say, how do we fix it?
Well, if I may, I think some guidance that I would need is, where do we draw the line between what is tolerable and what is not? The roof, the auditorium, the cafeteria, these problems become quickly visible to members of the public. The problems in this facility are deep and wide.
But they haven't been well documented.
And if you would like a comprehensive list of the known facilities issues, we can provide that for you.
You kidding me? We've been asking for years as a committee, not to you necessarily, but we've been asking. We put in a school building application 3 or 4 years in a row. We're supposed to quantify and define our deficiencies and our maintenance. So yes, that's exactly what I want as one member of this committee.
I'm happy to work with Carlos to provide the committee with a full accounting of everything in this building that's not working. And if you'd like, I can provide you with a full account of everything in this building that is, in my estimation, not satisfactory, but minimally operational.
Yeah, I think that would be very
So,
helpful.
I
very
mean,
helpful.
I don't know if this takes a vote, but I would like that. I think the rest of our committee would like that.
Definitely.
Well, we need it for financial planning purposes. So this committee, I think you've noticed, is, especially now, we're pretty committed to finding money if needed, but we need your help, we need everybody's help to say, hey, we need new tables, or we need a new sink in the bathroom, or, you know, and then prioritize it. I think we'll help find the money. We just need to know from the administration where we need to focus on.
And Josh, I do realize that maintenance doesn't work under you directly, so I'm trying to, again, holistically quantify this and solve this, not throw it strictly on your shoulders.
I'd be very pleased to work with my colleagues in facilities to provide for you a comprehensive review of the items in this building that are not working and those that are minimally functional and are not satisfactory in my estimation.
I think that would be good,
Thank
because,
you.
yeah, it's something that the facilities subcommittee has asked, and what we're expecting to happen over the next few months. But it sounds like if you already have a list, it's going to help jumpstart that process and obviously condense that timeline immensely from at least from the high school standpoint, which is probably one of the buildings that we're looking at most critically, as you can hear from all the different comments here. So yeah, that would be helpful.
We'll have it by Thanksgiving.
Perfect.
Excellent, thank you.
That'd be great. So
And maybe last thing, like, who owns certain areas? I think that'd be helpful to have a discussion. You know, who owns cafeteria, who owns auditorium, who owns whatever, you know, so there is no confusion, as you said, because this building is multifunctional. So I think as a committee, I'd like to know who's assigned that ownership.
Well, I think that may potentially be a question we need to pass on to Dr. McIntyre too, as a district-wide, right? What happens at each spot? Because realistically, I think it's up to him to also direct where a lot of these voices are supposed to go. So it would be nice to hear from him on that.
I think generally that this building principal owns the operations of the school during normal school hours. We also have our own responsibilities. That's how community use came about, that we allow, the community to use the building. We have responsibilities. We actually probably have the ultimate responsibility to, maintain the physical characteristics of the building. But it takes an effort, and we're certainly none of us 7 are gonna define the problem, so we need the administration and the staff to recognize those.
And to Mr. Agajanian's point, if any of you would like a tour of the building at any time, I'd be happy to take you around. Please contact me and we'll do it.
excellent. We appreciate that. Thank you. I guess, and one last thing, Kathy, if you can just have either you or Carla reach out to the other building principals and just see what the status of their tables are, right? I look at probably like a Memorial as being one of the older schools, or even Stacy, and just to see what the conditions are, so that where there's no future surprises there.
No,
we
I'm
can,
happy to do
we
that.
can look ahead at budgeting that appropriately.
I know Stacy just did an upgrade a few years ago, and Memorial as well. So I think they're in good shape, but I will reach out.
Excellent.
We should probably ask each building principal or facilities to give us a report on each building, because we're having a knee-jerk reaction now over 3 or 4 issues, but we don't want to have another knee-jerk reaction next year or the following year. So, I mean, this is all, it's frustrating, but it's to be productive and proactive instead of reactive.
When we
Isn't
opened
that
up-
something that Carlos, though, indicated he's gonna come back and provide for us? I just want to be sensitive to where we're going with this, and I think
Right.
we've really expanded now from beyond the cafeteria table. So I
Yeah.
think Carlos said he was
Right.
coming back to us, so maybe we should work to incorporate that action as well.
No, I think, yeah, thank you for
Okay.
bringing us back to center on that, yeah, and you're right. It is something that we, the facilities subcommittee has talked with Carlos, and again,
Great.
it's months out, but I think in light of these
Sure.
certain things that happen, I think that's why we're looking at trying to condense that schedule, but no, I
Great.
appreciate your input on that, so. All right, anything else? Not seeing anything, so, what, thank you for the update. Josh, thank you for being here for these two sensitive issues. You know, the support that you need from our committee, I think you heard, we're here to support you, and just let us know how, when, and where. So,
We'll have it by Thanksgiving.
all right, thank you,
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Josh. Thank you,
Thank you, Josh.
Josh, do you want to stay for the rockin' request?
Well, we're going to
where's-
discuss that, and I'm going to call my colleague Alicia Mitawakiel down to talk about our request for out-of-country travel to Ecuador. So
Oh, so you'll be back.
I'm not going anywhere.
All right.
Okay, all right, I
We'll
was
wait
gonna,
for you
wasn't
to
sure
come
if I
back.
wanted to bring that up, but, all right, so Josh will be back. All right, so then we'll move on to the Vendetti 2-year contract rollover.
Yes, so it is that time within the transportation contract for us to review our 2-year rollover as part of the contract. We received a price. Mr. Marcone was willing and did a great job pulling together a significant survey for us to review what other towns are paying, and I tried to keep it to the 24-25 comparable to what we have right now from Vendetti as a new price for the 24-25 school year, which is $526 a bus. So if you look at what some of the area towns are paying in 24-25, I've highlighted their rates. The 526 that Vendetti has bid is very comparable to those existing rates. So it would be my recommendation that we move forward with the rollover bid of 526 for the next 2 years. I don't know if you have any questions.
Quickly, why is like a Northbridge less on the, is it from the per diem, right? At 468.
I can't answer
Just,
why
I was just
they-
kind of curious, yeah, I mean, it's.
I see that. It could be mileage
Okay,
within Northbridge versus what Milford has for mileage. But I can't tell you why their
Okay.
rate would be different.
yeah, I mean, everything else is approaching, there's a few that, yeah, are fortunate enough to be below the 500, but most others are above, so. Any other questions or comments regarding busing, Matt?
How many buses do we have?
22.
22. Thank you.
Other questions as everybody's kind of, give everybody another moment to, go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, so just to clarify, Kathy, the extension is for what we're paying currently, so there's essentially no increase, is that?
No, that's the increase is 526. Currently, we are paying, I did not include that. I want to say.
I'm missing it if it's in here, but maybe it's in here.
Hold on.
Okay. I see a page of the original contract that's signed, but it doesn't have any info, like, maybe, is it buried in here?
I want to say it's
Oh, it has a
498.
total cost.
I believe it's 498, Meg.
I just divide that 5.2 million by the 22, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, got it, thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why does it cost the same for a 47 passenger bus as a 71 passenger bus? Why wouldn't we just get 22 71 passengers?
Because that's how it was bid.
Okay.
So
Meg, do
if,
you have an update on that?
No,
number,
because
or-
then I would also have to divide by 180, right? I'm trying to like, something in my
Okay.
math isn't working, I think.
it's 498 a day a bus right
498
now.
currently?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Other questions or comments regarding the bus, the renewal of the contract? Go ahead, Brenda.
Do we purchase the buses ourselves, or that's
This is just
all
contracted.
Okay.
All right.
I guess, sorry, Chris, maybe one more.
Yes, please, go
Just to
ahead.
confirm, Kathy, we would need the same number even in light of what we have acquired, to kind of Brendan's point, right? Because this incorporates us still using the ones that we have. That was already factored in? Like, the ones that are sitting outside, we don't
Those
need
are
to
our
deduct-
buses.
Right.
Yes.
We can't
This
deduct
is
this.
No, this is exclusive of that. This is just
exclusively
their
for the Vendetti Yellow
just their
Bus contract.
services.
I understand that. I'm just saying we can't deduct that number. Like, when we implemented the original contract, I don't think we had all those.
No, we're running those for different purpose.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. Okay, thanks.
I'll motion to accept that contract rollover.
All right, motion by John, second by Matt, then all in favor, and that is unanimous. Great, thank you very much. All right, moving on then to our international student field trip to Ecuador request.
So this is my colleague Alicia Mitowakil, who teaches in our math department and is a multi-season coach for Milford High School and club advisor and an exceptional member of our faculty. Alicia approached Dr. McIntyre and I with a proposal to try to organize a service learning trip to Ecuador in partnership with an agency called the Mana Project International, which Alicia has direct experience with. Dr. McIntyre and I have met multiple times with Alicia. We've engaged in research and vetting with other educational institutions that have worked with the Mana Project to host student groups at their site in Ecuador. Although Dr. McIntyre isn't here tonight, I can speak on his behalf in letting you know that we strongly support this request to organize a service learning trip to Ecuador in April of 2024. Before I sort of give Alicia an opportunity to provide you with more details about the hopes for this trip, I'd like to share that we are very, very fortunate at Milford High School that we have a number of faculty members who very, very generously give of their time to lead international travel for our students. That is going way above and beyond. It is indicative of the deep commitment that our educators have to our students, that they are typically giving up their own vacation time and weekends and going through a lot of logistical work to organize overseas travel. And Alicia is one of these teachers. I'm particularly enthusiastic about this trip because of the service learning component to it, which is not part of our current international programs. Our international travel programs are all based on cultural exchange, which is eminently worthwhile and is a wonderful experience for our students. But I think the trip that Alicia is proposing is better yet. In addition to this being a culturally enriching experience for students, I think it will very much advance their civic and social development. It will give them firsthand experience with a host of topics and development studies. It will give them opportunities to improve their spoken Spanish. It will give them an opportunity to engage in work that I am confident for many of our students will be a transformative experience in their development as young adults. So I give my highest possible recommendation. I want to give Alicia a chance to talk to you more about the details in the trip, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Very good.
So when I was a freshman in college, I went on a trip through Mana Project to Nicaragua as just like a group member, and then 2 years later I was asked to be like the group leader and lead the trip and go through the applications, choose the students that go, again going to Nicaragua. Mana Project has like usually 2 to 3 locations in Central America. Their goal is to open their site and get the community to be able to run these programs on their own. So they were successful with that in Nicaragua, so they don't have that site anymore. But they do have sites in Ecuador now. And I just thought about it when, like, I thought about the dynamic of Milford High School and the different communities that we have here. And I was like, oh, wow, like that would be really helpful for our students. I got a lot out of it when I went in college for those 2 trips, and it was probably one of my favorite trips that I've ever been on, and I've been to a lot of different countries and things like that, and it was definitely one of the ones that like stood out to me. So I think our students could benefit a lot from it.
I would also just note in terms of Alicia's experience, Alicia has traveled with Milford High School students overseas in the past, traveled to China with students in the summer of 2019.
Yeah.
Open it up for questions or comments. Matt?
I don't really have many questions. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for students, especially given the population that we have in town and in MHS. personally fully support this.
Excellent. Mike?
This, I generally support this. This is great. I've done trips to Guatemala, something similar, not with students, with just volunteers to rebuild a hospital, actually. But so when they travel, it says health. The travel insurance is included. Does it include medical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Support it. It's great.
Brendan?
Yeah, well, just one quick question. Are there any students who would not be allowed to go to this? Like, so we talked about chronic absenteeism earlier. Like, are they disqualified from attending this trip if they've missed 10%?
Yeah, students will need to be in good standing
Okay,
and eligible
that's the
to travel
question
on a
I'm
Milford High School trip, and that will include their conduct, their academics, and their attendance.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So, yeah, read through, 8 to 10 students and just one faculty member? Is that what?
I think 2 at least.
2 faculty members,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, just kind of that ratio. And then timing, you said it was April, is that during April vacation?
Mhm.
Okay, so no loss of school or minimal
There
on the front or
would
back
probably
end?
be a couple days either before or after break.
Yeah, understandable. And how many, is it a week long? I apologize.
They try
Okay,
to
it's here,
do,
yeah.
a week of service, so
Yeah.
like at least Monday through Friday, usually
Excellent.
like Monday through Saturday, and then
Yeah.
a few days on each end for traveling, and they try to have you get to like just see the country for
Be
a
able
day
to
or
enjoy
two.
it, right. Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, appreciate that. No, appreciate you being here to present and answer the questions and comments.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
Thanks, Lisha. I really love the sort of like connection with the Milford community approach to it, so I think it's really unique that you picked this location. I guess I have maybe a general question. Do we have protocol in regards to sort of like State Department travel alerts? I'm just thinking about the broader sort of world events, and do we have any protocol where at some point in time we might say we're not going to make this trip, we don't feel comfortable? Not specific to this one, just a general question.
So, certainly, I mean, I think if there were to be a State Department travel advisory advising against U.S. nationals traveling to a site where we intended to travel, we would cancel the trip.
Okay. Just
I think we had a trip scheduled before the pandemic. Didn't we?
I know the 8th grade trip got canceled, correct,
I
to
thought we had
Canada that
something
year.
else at,
I don't know about
um,
the high school.
maybe
I just didn't know if we had
China or
protocol in
something.
place.
We had students in Italy when the pandemic
Yeah.
broke out in Italy over February vacation.
Yeah.
Right. No, I think it's a good question, like, just based in light of what's going on in the
Protocol.
world, right? So, no, it's
Yeah, and that's one of the
good
reasons
question.
why insurance is so important, right?
Yeah.
If we're not gonna send our students someplace where the State Department says is unsafe.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, excellent. So obviously, this being a out-of-state and obviously out-of-country, it does require a vote. So motion by Matt, second by Brendan, then all in favor, and that is unanimous, so
Okay, thank you for your support, and thank you,
no
Alicia.
problem. So
Thank you.
enjoy your trip.
Um,
You'll have to come back to report to this committee and, pictures and all that. So
It'd be
definitely
great
want
to bring some students in after the trip.
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
appreciate that, so, great.
All right, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Mrs. Pryor, would this be a good moment to talk about
Absolutely, let's bring
the request?
If that's okay, Mr. Chair, to bounce out of order a little?
Yeah, there it is, yep, down in 13,
Okay.
go ahead.
So we have received a request for a waiver of our typical user fee for a charity event to be held in our auditorium, which we've done previously. And so it would be a benefit concert put on by the Joe B. Band. You heard Andrew speak earlier tonight about his membership in the Joe B. Band. It's a concert called Rockin' for a Reason. The benefit is for the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation. This is a nonprofit organization that funds research and clinical trials towards the treatment of the most aggressive forms of childhood cancer with a focus on brain tumors. So typically when we have outside user groups using the auditorium, we charge them a modest fee. Given that our students would be performing and that all of the benefits from the event would be going to a very worthwhile cause, it would be my proposal that we waive the typical user fee for this group.
Any questions or comments? Not seeing.
I'll motion to
Oh,
waive
hold
the
on.
fee. We can discuss
Sorry.
after.
Okay, yeah, all right, so motion, sorry. Motion by John, I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Matt, discussion.
My only question was generally, what is that fee used for? I know it's a modest fee. Is it just for cleaning supplies or having somebody there?
Oh, yeah, we actually moved that into our property use revolving account.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
All right. Michael, did you have a question? You good?
No, I was good.
Okay, so yeah, motion by John, second by Matt, and then all in favor, and that is unanimous, great.
All right, thank you,
There
folks.
go.
I appreciate
No
it.
problem. Very good. All right, back to agenda item 11, just our facilities capital project updates. Hoping to just kind of move through these as quick as possible, especially in light of the time, so. Who wants to give that update?
Anything other, I don't want to comment on the Brookside Modular. I'm hearing the punch list is very limited.
Okay.
Vicky said it's very short. She was going to meet with Carlos to tighten it up. I don't know if anybody's heard anything different.
Have not, and that's why I kind of wanted to bring that up and talk about that. You know, there are some concerns, you know, or I shouldn't say concerns. There are outstanding punch list items, so I don't want to fully pay Aries until all those items are done. So, at least from my standpoint, and I also want to know what we have for punch list items and what is the timeline to complete these punch list items. So, you know, certainly it's you know, we want to complete this project and we want to complete this project in a timely fashion, but we also want to make sure it's done to our standards. So.
Yeah, just to I think follow what Chris just said, and I don't know if this is a point to make now or not, but prior to closing anything out, I think it would be important that the facility subcommittee meet with perhaps you and Kevin and Carlos, just to have an opportunity as a district to wrap it up and be on the same page ourselves before anything gets signed off and closed off, considering how the rest of the project went.
So, other comments on Brookside? I'm just going to read in just one thing, kind of read into record that I received recently from Elizabeth Manini, who is our town engineer, and I can send this to everybody if they feel like they want it, but I want to let, it was sent to actually John and I wanted to let you both know that while I found the site construction to meet the requirements for compliance with the site plan, I would have liked to see better workmanship in areas. The grading around the modular foundation could have blended with the existing pavement better, and the area under the ramp at the rear of the building also appears unfinished. The grass area to the north of the addition was disturbed during construction, and the vegetation has not been restored. These items are not problematic from a zoning site plan compliance. I offer my comments as a representative for the town with a site development background. So again, just someone that is a taxpayer that also has an extensive background that just kind of went by the job site and just felt that she wanted to express some of her thoughts overall. And I think, again, that kind of goes back to a little bit of retainage for the project, just to make sure that we are fully satisfied, and even the disturbed ground, and to make sure that is that on the contractor, is that on Parks Department that assists us in our ground. So just to try to tie those loose ends up. So, anything else on Brookside?
I agree with Matt. We should as a subcommittee meet with the administration and walk that site.
Yeah.
So as Liz points out, it's compliant.
Right.
It was just really, frankly, poorly executed.
Right. Yep.
So maybe we need to consult with town council or as to what recourse we have as far as
next steps.
It being unacceptable, and it needs to be a little higher standard. It meets the minimum, but I didn't read the entire contract. I'm not an attorney, but do we have some recourse to say, yeah, this is good, but this portion is unacceptable?
Right.
I mean, so I think we need to meet and have that discussion whenever anybody else is available.
Okay.
Just for some context for the group, I can swing by tomorrow, and especially that grass section that's being talked about, I'll send some pictures along.
Yeah, I've seen
But that grass section specifically is
terrible.
probably more of a danger now to students in terms of like ankle rolling and falling down because of the divots, but I'll send some stuff along.
Is
so
it
you guys
covered
have
by
it.
leaves right now, out of curiosity? But to be
Probably.
determined, yeah.
Everything is. I'll
Yeah.
send some pictures tomorrow.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Appreciate it.
And this project is, it's small by school building project scope, but, we typically when you have a real building or a larger scale building project, you have a school building committee and they have the say on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, right? I mean, just like we did in Woodland and others. This was just kind of like an in-betweener, I think, in terms of size and scope. So maybe we should have put a clerk of the works on it and maybe we just could have had better results with the contractor, because if they just executed flawlessly, we wouldn't be having this discussion tonight, and it is small by school building standards, but I think it's something we need to kind of fully evaluate and then decide if we're just okay with this, or we want them to change something, if we have to fight with them or not, and then get them to evaluate with us too and say, is this the product you're happy putting out?
Go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, so Kathy, can you just clarify the amount we're approving in the warrant versus the total outstanding amount?
We're holding a retainage of $80,000.
So the 375 is incorporating.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarity.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Brookside? I'm not seeing it. So, moving on to the turf and track.
I think that officially can come off the agenda.
Okay.
We are
Okay.
complete.
I'm going to add one thing to the list that I did send to, I believe, to Pete and Kevin, but I'll also follow up with you that it looks like there was some damage to the fence on the visitor side. So it was done early on in the process. I want to say I made at least the superintendent aware of it. So yeah, I'll just, since he's not here, I'll just bring it to
Okay.
your attention. And so again, the fence was bumped into probably by one of the pieces of heavy machinery and bent one of the top poles. So it
okay.
should, just as we've got this beautiful track and beautiful turf, so let's just make sure everything around it is appropriately fixed.
That's right.
Hold on, Brendan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was hoping the long jump covers were gonna get properly fitted, because they're still not, like, previously they did not fit the space for the long jump, and they still don't. Like, they still don't fit evenly within the space that was allowed. So I don't know if that's something that was part of the contract or not, but I was kind of hoping that would have been resolved.
Okay.
So.
Megan?
We had discussed the 6K change order for the change to the black
Yes.
track. I was familiar with that. I wasn't familiar with the 150K change order that we're asked to approve.
That's for the softball lights. We
Because we
approved that
added it
separate.
to
yes,
that, Kathy?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris. I wasn't aware of what that was.
I wasn't aware of that one either,
All right.
Megan, so.
Minor change.
Yeah, exactly. So, no.
Good thing we have an accountant on staff.
No, we talked about the 6K.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Anything else on turf and track? Not seeing anything, so moving on to lighting.
Yes, so the softball field lighting began on Monday. They brought in the equipment, and we shall see. I have no other update other than they've
Yeah.
begun.
There's vehicles out there doing things, which is great. So it looks like, they're starting to, the infrastructure for the light poles and things, so that is great to see. So, excellent. Any other questions on the turf lights? I mean, the softball lights, not seeing any. All right, then, moving on to our, a request for out-of-state travel.
Dr. McIntyre is requesting to attend the AASA National Conference on Education. So I don't know what the AA is, but Superintendent's Conference, and that's in February 14th to February 17th. That's in San Diego, California. It's the annual conference. I believe he goes annually.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll motion.
All right, so motion by Brendan, second by Megan, all in favor, and that is unanimous. All right, and then moving on to our report from the Assistant Superintendent in Business and Human Resources. Easy for me to say.
I have for the committee's approval this evening 5 warrants in the amount of $830,816.93.
Looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Megan, second by Brendan, all in favor. That is, Matt, you in favor? Yeah, sorry. Unanimous. Thanks. Megan, show up. All right.
We also have a request for course reimbursement in the amount of $6,326.
All right, motion to approve the course reimbursement. Motion by Matt, second by Megan, all in favor, and that is also unanimous.
And then finally, just a list of the latest appointments from our previous meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We appreciate that update. Moving on, subcommittee updates.
Website. Sorry, I was like, yeah. So Matt and I, I've been in the school for 2 days, 4 times. So. Last night we, was it last night?
It was 4 hours ago.
Yeah,
well,
sorry, 4 hours ago.
8 hours ago
We met,
now.
the website, development team, I guess you could call it, we met today, myself, Matt, Tim Kernan, Melissa. And there's somebody else, I don't remember the other person's name, it was a assistant principal. Yeah, it was great. Anyway, so, and then Nancy led it with Kevin Collins, so we've started the process on the design of the new website.
Excellent.
That's
Good. Anything
Definitely
other subcommittees? I met last Thursday. Craig was there. Was the labor and management, or management and labor? So it's that new subcommittee that kind of consolidated it up. Just kind of quickly running through. Kind of Brookside's coming back together, where they had a lot of stuff was being stored in the gym, so they're getting that back situated. Stacy had some screens that needed to be fixed and some water fountains. I think one of the things that we'll have to consider is now Brookside has 6 extra classrooms, so does that warrant the need for another nurse in that area of some capacity? The teachers at Stacy brought up the heat, or the hot conditions that we had in early September, and is there something that we can do to help that help mitigate the air temperature in those rooms? One of the other concerning ones from my side was the Shining Star Playground and the mats, and the mats in what was underneath is kind of settled. So the mats were put on top of the mulch, and everything's kind of moving around. So not only are students tripping and falling, but also staff is tripping and falling. So I think that's something that needs to be done more immediately. And again, that was something I think
You moved on to the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the boilers pulled Carlos away.
Right.
But
Yep. Exactly. So that's just something that, again,
I'll follow
they're
up
looking
with
at. I think throughout the temperatures throughout all the buildings, like just the buildings are old and they're out of balance and things of that sort. And buildings need to be rebalanced for airflow and flow of the temperature. So that's just something that we continue to see. I did tell the teachers or the staff that were there, like, push any problems through that incident IQ to make sure. Don't just email Carlos. Don't just email your building principal. Let's get everything into that system so we as a committee understand that how many tickets are out there, and does Carlos and the maintenance staff need to get bigger because the problems are growing overall with that. One of the tough ones is mice at Memorial, and we also heard VD say that there's mice here at the high school. And one other thing at Memorial is parking. So Stacy Middle School teachers get to school before Memorial, so they have kind of preferential treatment on parking. So that's, again, something that we may have to look as our buildings grow and our staff grows. Memorial is very kind of penned in on parking too, so just something to be aware of from our side of it. And then the kind of the last one is, there was that vaping incident here at MHS, and it sounds like it's a problem, and it sounds like almost like sometimes teachers' hands are tied, that the teachers can't follow a student into the bathroom, right? And a vape is something that's just the mist that kind of goes away pretty quickly, as opposed to, say, cigarette smoke. So don't know what the solution is, but it is just something that I wanted to bring up to this committee, that it's a problem. It obviously caused a fire alarm to go off and a fire response here, so we'll have to kind of keep that on our radar. So, Matt?
Just to add to that, if you don't mind for a second, I think it's important for the public to know that just because vaping is not smoke doesn't mean that it can't obviously set off an alarm. And I have a relative that's an assistant fire chief in another town, and when I asked him about this, personally I thought it was going to have to be like just a bathroom full of students, and he said this is a problem everywhere, by the way. They responded to 3 at their high school in the last 2 weeks. And they said very literally they can test it where if you just blow underneath one straight up, you'll set it off. It only takes one to let it go. So I think there's a misunderstanding that students can kind of sneak this in because it's just a vapor, and it's not. It tricks the fire systems, and it's obviously a costly problem because you're rolling an entire emergency response because they don't know what they're walking into for honestly selfishness and other words that I can't say on microphone. So just something to keep in mind, obviously, in the public eye.
Fair enough. We appreciate that. All right. Appreciate the filter. So, All right, well then, moving on to future agenda items. Any future agenda items to add? Yes, Michael?
Absenteeism,
Yep, I have that.
and then, I don't know, the heating building longer term, I'm not sure if something wants to talk about it first, but I think we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned if Josh is like, the building's
Yeah.
below
Yeah.
a certain temperature all the time.
So just probably the MHS facility in general, you think?
I think
Just
so.
to keep it more broad and
Keep
more
it
open,
broad.
so.
Yep.
So that
Keep
way
it
Meg
broad,
doesn't
and
have to
that's
bring us back to center.
And we can go wherever we want that night.
That's the only item that can be on that agenda, though.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, so.
Good
all right.
point, Matt.
What specifically about absenteeism?
I think
Is
we
there
have
a
a-
specific question?
Yeah, okay,
Is-
that's good. Personally, for me, I think there needs to be, since we're entering budget season, I would like to hear from you guys on how you would solve it, and then if you need funding from us to do it.
Maybe you guys can coordinate this offline afterwards.
Okay.
I mean, give everybody time to think
Yeah.
about it and reflect.
Okay.
I mean, you can
We'll
keep
coordinate
going
this
now,
after.
but I'm just saying.
John's
don't-
tired.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, I, you know, it's a
Yeah,
good
it's fine.
agenda item,
Yeah.
but let's not finalize it tonight. Carry on. I don't mean to I don't mean to kill the discussion.
Okay, we're getting to
You know me, I don't like
Yeah,
to do
exactly.
things cold. I like
Yeah,
to
exactly.
methodically.
So-
Is that a heat
approach.
joke?
Any,
Yeah, no
any
pun-
other
no pun-
future
no
agenda
pun intended.
items? Besides making sure we keep these meetings much shorter. I
Well,
apologize.
that's your fault.
I know, exactly, so. All right, not seeing any others, Mike, I got yours, so looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Michael, second by Matt, all in favor, and
Aye.
it's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody.